Summoning Insight is back. And obviously, most of the regions have ended, but we've got the wonderful LPL. Before we can even get into the LPL, think about this, right? The storyline in a normal sport should be, wow, BLG did win after all. I mean, he was legend, didn't he make the final? Whoa, Knight, another championship. Viper goes to the LPL. All these great... But actually, there's a bigger storyline within Chinese League of Legends that I actually think dominated and shadowed this entire result, which is one of the teams this season that was obviously a very up and down team that had like weird upset potential was Top Esports. And people don't know, this was one of the only years where Top Esports doesn't have an all-star roster. This year, particularly, most famously at support and jungle, they have essentially no-namers. And during different times in the split, both of those no-namers have actually shown some like pretty good games. And this is where it gets crazy. So naiyou, the jungler of Top Esports, remember, he's filling pretty big shoes, guys. He is filling fucking Kanavi's spot. He used to be like perennial MVP and champion of the LPL. So he's obviously got like massive pressure on him. If people saw the upper bracket match where it was that 3-2 between JDG and WE, he actually, you could argue, even in a losing effort, looked like the best player in the server. He looked fucking amazing in some of these games. But in the 5th game, he did do, let's just say, a very unorthodox build, and he made some quite questionable decisions in the game 5. Now, that's fine on paper, because as you saw by the rest of the LPL, JDG is one of the best teams at the time. They were thought to be a top 3 team. Turns out now they're a top 2 team without it all went through. And he's a rookie jungler. He's like an inexperienced player. He's in a big team. You play him, like, in theory, to me, I looked at that series and thought, listen, that happens to rookies in game 5. What do you expect? Like, it's not that big a deal. It now emerges, and we're going to try our best to use like journalistic framing of like allegedly, so people state, etc. We're going to try and keep it legit. Basically, the story that's emerged, funny enough, during the weekend of the LPL finals, is the notion that in Top Esports, it's not even the idea, it's external people. From the way I read the story, his own teammates, including the ADC, by the way, within this team of Top Esports, have basically made comments suggesting like that there's something suspicious, or that this guy's just outright match fixing in some way. And he was sort of like, as a one-man individual in a 10-player game, was the person trying to like affect the outcome. Well, again, we don't know to what ends, who he's involved with, but it's supposed to be that. And one of the things that makes this really rare, because we can obviously spin this in a minute into like a bigger thing of like this has actually been one of the open secrets that's a problem within the LPL itself. Like people have often told me over the years, this is an area where there's things like match fixing goes on, but like you're not supposed to say anything. And in fact, there's a weird social thing I've said this about your boy Bo back in the day. I've heard it's actually the people who report on the match are getting in more trouble, bizarrely. Like that somehow can make you even more socially ostracized. So basically, the implication is not only make this guy a match fixed, but it's his own team that's sort of calling him out. And then finally, I saw something a day or two ago where it was implied he himself sort of like either copped to it or like admitted he was somehow involved or something. So obviously, again, we're not in the Chinese region. We definitely don't speak any form of Chinese, written or spoken. So we're just going off things we've seen translated on the internet and posts of people who are fans who gather the info, like a lot of the LPL and LCK. So let's just start at the top. Thoughts specifically, if it is indeed true that in Top Esports, the jungler naiyou did match fixing, and in this case, it would be in the LPL playoffs potentially, bro. What do you think of that?
It's so mental, because it's like when it came up, the game 5 was so vivid, you know, because it was a truly like the decisions made in that game were truly like disgusting, but that's like something that you kind of just assume is like, oh, he has a bad game, because naiyou as a player, like when he was on Rare Atom, people called him like anal you, like that was the whole meme. It's like it was on Rare Atom. He wasn't like exciting as a player, you know, like he wasn't anything in particular. He had like one-off games where mechanically he played well, but that was like nothing as a standout, you know. The big thing that really stood out was how his coach went on to a co-stream like 1 or 2 days after and basically said, you know, from his mouth, Poppy just said, he said that every loss that he match fixed, he walked back those statements in the aftermath, right? He walked them back. Right. But even in that context, like walking back, that's just something like making a mistake during an investigation. It's like you're not supposed to air out any information during an investigation. You're supposed to do it through the right channels and let everything go through the motion, because we knew the investigation was happening. And the fact that 2 players allegedly like reported it internally and they launched an investigation, Top Esports did officially say that that's what they're doing. The fact that 2 players did this, and then the coach went on to a stream 2 days after saying that the player in question, naiyou, admitted to doing this, really, really reinforces it. It's like, this is a coach with a long standing. Like, Poppy's been around for a very long time. And for him to say that publicly, or get to that point to say that publicly, there must be a lot of truth behind those statements, even though he retracted them. Like, that's not a mistake or something that you do randomly, just talk about this publicly about your player when the investigation is happening. Obviously, he was just really upset about the fact, because he was just saying, like, he's such a great player. He had the power in himself to decide if we could win or lose a game. That's how good he was. So he had really, really high praise for him, and obviously a lot of disappointment. And something that was spoken about, or like written about, I saw in posts too, which is a story that I've heard many times before, is that in the LDL, there's a lot of entrapment that happens, where basically the LDL players, it's like the context of you playing or not playing kind of depends on you doing things like match fixing in order to keep your spot. And then the scenarios that are created is that they kind of blackmail you into continuing, and they kind of keep a stranglehold over you, that these people in question that are doing it and are pushing for it are just holding that against you, because if it comes out that you did it, it's far more impactful to your career than the person who's just trying to abuse you to, of course, make the money. And it seems like that the rumor is that that's the context. That's something that has just been hanging over him, and something that is leveraged over him. And now he's finally getting a breakout in top esports, and that's still hanging over him. But the most difficult aspect of something, when something like this comes out, and how you can never go back from it, is because it puts every damn game he has ever played in his career in question. Yep. I mentioned Rare Atom. It's like, he's been on teams. It's not his first team. So he's been around. He played in LDL and so forth. And it just puts every loss he's ever had. It's like, was there then match fixing that occurred, which of course is just a horrible thing. Like, to have it so blatant and have it so out in the open and stated by team and like people internally. Usually when some things like this has come out in the past, for example, the whole Milky Way, that took a lot of time. That took a lot of time, a lot of investigating, and we saw the aftermath of it months later. This was quick. This was very quick, and the response was very fast, and a lot of it happened publicly, which makes this a very unique case where even though nothing is a shut case yet, it just seems like the evidence based on what people are saying just seems so overwhelming. We've never had something so public so fast.
No, as I say, especially the shocking thing is the idea people not only within your team, but then publicly say, that's the part I find crazy. Normally you get radio silence from the teammates, and it's more like journalists or the league or some opponent, by the way, is the most obvious person to call you out, like an opponent in the game where you did something dodgy. Like, the idea your own teammates call it out is crazy. And the idea your coach suggests I agree with you. That the giveaway there to me is this. He didn't trip over and say that, Yamato. Like, I'll give you an example. I technically misspoke when I said that Jackie and fucking naiyou are rookies. I meant inexperienced players without a big name, right? They haven't played a couple of years, but it was for lesser teams. I'm not interested, right? The really shocking thing is the idea your own coach wouldn't just be like, hey, he might have match fixed that game. He'd be like, he's match fixed in every game we lose. Like, fucking hell, bro. That's about as spicy a take as you can get. And neither were you, Yamato. He didn't trip over and say that. If he said that and then walked it back, that was like, he probably believes that is true, but then he realized, like, holy fuck, there might be legal implications, things with the league. Maybe I've even put my team in a bad spot. So then he was like, oh, actually, wait a minute, maybe it's just this thing. And then he'd go back to a safer position. But I'm sorry, I don't think it's that you were like, wait, I was wrong, actually. It sounds to me more like you realize I just can't say that as the fucking coach. Because I'll tell you the thing, when I look up his Gamepedia, that I immediately think about why the coach would say this, is because the problem is, he was in, as well as with Jackie, he was in originally the TES fucking Challenger teammate. So the obvious concern here is the TES org doesn't want them to think what you just said, Yamato. That, like, wait a minute, this is a player who came from LDL, notorious, by the way, for match fixing. And in fact, I'll get into a few details there that'll probably surprise people. First of all, I'm sorry, let's just run down a quick list, guys. So we've got naiyou, TES Jungler. We've got Milky Way, depending on what era, FPX and RNG jungler, or EDG even. We've got fucking Bo, FPX jungler. Notice how the most obvious position, if you want one player to match fix, is just jungle, because the jungle does control the tempo and the way the game state goes and the objectives in a way where they actually have an absurd amount of power that no one laner would even have. Like, yeah, in theory, if you were the mid laner, you could absolutely, like, lose games because you could do bad in lane and you could do shit in the team fight, but it'd be a lot trickier, actually. In theory, the reason why the jungler I actually think would be the best player to get on your side to do match fixing is, as you can see in a case like this, you wouldn't even need his whole team. You just need that one player, mate. And then if he's actually a good player, which this guy seems to be, like I say, he was smooth for the rest of the series, mate. If he's a good player, it's easy to just look like you fucked up. You missed a smite. You did, in this case, I built the wrong item. You do something basic that allows you to do it where hopefully it's not blatant. Because I will say this, people now might go back, like I just said, and go, bit of a weird build. No one was saying that at the time, though. People were like, is he just an idiot? Or was this just a bad build? Or did pressure get to him? You know, nobody actually suspected this guy. And the reason I bring that case up of why I think a jungler is also, this is why I think there's a history of it, the obvious person to get on your side if you want to do match fixing, is this reminds me of a key point people always get wrong about match fixing, Yamato. They think of a really old school example of this, which they think it means your entire team agree that you're going to lose the game, right? So what they're missing is that that's a really old school way of manipulating betting. Like, if people don't know, something like 10 plus years ago, mate, I remember hearing in football in England about how people did what are called spot fixes, which is the idea that you don't really lose the game because the implications of that for you and your team are so huge, and you're going to get caught eventually if you throw the whole game. Like, think about it, to throw a whole game in football, you're probably going to have to do something mental, like intentionally misses a striker or score an own goal as a defender. Instead, what you used to do in football, and this is a long time established, so it's the same in esports, is you do a spot fix, as in there'll be a bet like, will there be a throw-in within the first 2 minutes? And you just kick a ball out when you get challenged at the side of the field. Like, it's something where it's really easy to have plausible deniability. And it also doesn't wreck the game. You can still go on and win that game and try the rest for the rest of the game. So one of the reasons why this is also interesting is the implication here is, like, his job was just to make sure the series lost. So maybe he did try his best in all the other games. He was actually trying, and that's why they got to a fifth game. And then in this case, he just did a brain fart and built the wrong items or made a couple of misplays. And that would be easily forgivable for an inexperienced player, like I say. So actually, this all does sound fairly plausible. And unfortunately, as you pointed out, there is, especially in Chinese esports, it's not just League of Legends, by the way. I can tell you in Counter-Strike, it was rife with a lot of match fixing. My friend Richard Lewis, obviously LFN journalist, actually looked into that topic, and he said similar things to you, mate. He said actually the most alarming thing about match fixing in China is two-part. One, that because it's China, you just can't get the authorities involved in the same way as you could in another country. If this was happening in Germany or Denmark or something, mate, you could literally call the police and report them to some. There's even like sports commissions would look into this sort of thing, and obviously the gambling thing would be a massive deal, right? One, if you report this to China and you're not Chinese, good luck getting anything done. Like, remember, we don't have any authority over them. They choose what they do. We don't even have the extradition policy in certain cases. And then also the bigger issue is this, as you pointed out, in the West, most match fixing tends to be the individual doing the match fixing being greedy or having his own reasons to want to match fix. The most disturbing thing about the Chinese esports match fixing is I've heard this same story many times, that it's almost like there's institutional corruption, and it'll be your coach or your manager or your agent who pressures you into it. And so it's not even that the player themselves going, hey, I'm just like greedy and want money, I'll do anything. Sometimes they're actually being forced to do it. And I can tell you in Counter-Strike especially, there was some really disturbing stories Richard told me of people literally having like triad mafia people come to an apartment and put like a fucking machine gun against your head and tell you like you're going to throw this game or we'll kill you, basically. Like, so it's also it's not just like, you know, in the West when we hear of esports match fixing, even though you can contact the authorities, it's not considered like a massive crap. It's more like, wow, you shouldn't have done that, like ban this guy. Your life could be implicated in these stories too, and obviously no one wants to fuck with mafia type people. They're the ones who might actually kill you in real life if you owe them 10k or you didn't do what they said. I mean, think about how many movies have we had in the West where a boxer's supposed to throw a fight and he gets paid the money and then he doesn't, and then like they want to kill him. It's actually the plot of fucking Pulp Fiction if people don't remember. Remember that classic one with Bruce Willis where he's supposed to throw that fight for Marcellus Wallace? Anyway, I've just been watching that recently for 4Player. Check out LFN Movies channel. Seamless integration there. But yeah, the more disturbing thing to me, that's also, by the way, I'll tie it back in. That's also why I think the Poppy guy, his coach, went out of his way to make it like, this guy's doing all this, he's doing, because they want to make it clear that they're not involved in this like tradition of fucking it's somehow being in someone inside the team helping you do it or making you do it.
It's just so fucking shocking. I don't know.
Is, yeah.
It's like it's
by
like,
the way, especially for this level of team, like you say, if you say an LDL team, fine, we don't even know who half the LDL play. Even if it was LPL, Yamato, if it was like a rare atom team, like some bad team, yeah, also, it's a team that's like actually like almost beat like the fucking second best team in the LPL playoffs. That's freaking crazy. You don't expect that level to have the match fixing.
Yeah. It's just such a, I don't know. it's such a cruel situation, right? How it like also follows you and it's used as leverage. It's
sure.
a very, very cruel situation that it's like
Oh yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing you're implying by the LDL thing. The other problem, mate, is if you ever do it once and people know you did it, now when you get to the top, maybe some guy comes along and goes, "Hey, I know about all your past. You do it again now, or I reveal what you did a year ago for me or something." Yeah, absolutely.
It just follows you and they get you early and like that's a story that I've heard a couple of times and had it confirmed a couple of times that it just weighed over you and you're basically sometimes faced with the decision. It's like, do you want to have a player career or not? And sometimes there's been players that stare down the barrel of that decision, and it could be a situation where a player maybe gave up everything to play. We've heard that story in China. It's like, oh, he gave up everything to pursue his dream, and then he's just faced with that.
Yes.
Which is that story in itself is just so damn cruel because it's like these guys are they're 17-year-olds.
No,
like,
absolutely.
It's
if you notice,
horrific.
it's why I make that distinction, Yamato, that I'm actually less judgmental of like a young Korean or a young Chinese person who's pushed into this than I would be of like when I hear a story about some top European Counter-Strike player who might have match fixed. Like that guy's just greedy, mate. He actually just that's like the character side of a bad human being because he's in a position of wealth and status where he doesn't need to do it. He's just doing it because of like he's the sort of criminal who does it because he can. This person's doing it because they're actually incredibly pressured. Again, it's all easy for us to say don't do it, but what if you are someone? I mean, in this analogy we just gave you, Mal, let's make the extreme version. This could be an example of someone who did it when they were pressured, when they were 16, when they were nobody, like you said, just trying to make the team. And if people don't know, it's actually quite notorious in LCK and LPL, more of a rare story in the West, that people just quit school to do gaming, mate. Like they go full, when they say go all in, they don't just mean play the game. They mean essentially, I am literally going to gamble my entire social life and like future financially on this game. And if you do so, you're basically banking you're going to have at least a 10-year career. So if you were getting hard times to even get through the cut in the LDL, as we're saying, you make that one mistake can then be leveraged against you, maybe in this case, maybe 2 or 3 years later when you're suddenly a top player. Because remember, even though the Poppy guys, like, he did it in every game, let's just imagine for a second he didn't, right? Let's imagine this was the one game he did do it in, like game 5 of this playoff match. That would be the perfect way to have someone like that. You have them as a little sleeper agent. You don't activate them for years, mate. You have no reason to. But then when they're in the best position ever for them to do the match fixing, you just tell them, remember in this case, in League of Legends, bro, someone could even potentially be like sending you a message on an app after game 4, like, right, I'm calling in that favor. You better throw this game. You better find a way to lose it. And then suddenly, in that scenario, like, it's not the same as just some player sitting back like, greedy, I want money. Like in this case, I know what you mean. Like he might be thinking to himself, like, he might even, you know what? It's even easy to rationalize it, bro. If you're in the TES, you're going to think, well, we weren't supposed to win this series anyway. I'm amazed we got to game 5. Oh, it's harmless. We were the underdog anyway, things like that. You know, there's all sorts of ways you could rationalize it because I'm with you. A lot of people don't realize this would be like the guy who gives up. Oh, I'll actually give you a very dark analogy, but I've just thought of a brilliant one. This is one of the reasons, unfortunately, Yamato, why, you know, about 10 years ago, we heard all these stories in the Me Too movement about Hollywood producers, the idea they're like creepy sexually, and they're all trying to do that thing where it's like, I'll give you like a part in a movie, or I'll give you more consideration if essentially you sleep with me as the producer, right? What people maybe don't realize about that is that woman also isn't just someone like me or you doing a job. They're like, do I want to be in a movie? How do I weigh that up? That might be someone who did that classic thing where they moved from like the middle of nowhere, some farm town, to LA when they were 16 and they were like waiting tables. Then they got the right audition and they got that. And then suddenly a year later, they're in this guy's hotel room and then they're thinking like, fuck, do I want a career in the movie? Like, there's all sorts of different pressures and considerations there that are not as simple as me and you at home going, would I do that? Like, we haven't lived the life up to the point with all the pressures and problems that would then potentially make someone more likely to do it, unfortunately. It's why in this scenario, I actually do think, by the way, rather than this being like salacious and like, wow, we got a criminal, since we're probably never going to know who the people behind the match fixing are beyond this player, I actually also feel quite sorry for the player to some degree, even though I do certainly acknowledge he has obviously done something morally and like quite literally criminally illegal. At the same time, I do have like a mild amount of sympathy for him.
Yeah. And
probably the end of his career too, by the way. If this ends up being investigated, this could just be the end of this guy's career completely.
100%. And to add from, I know from my experience, like in the LEC, it's like usually what the LEC does, right, is that they make sure to take time we have like these yearly like seminars where they like make sure to educate all the players, and for people that are there it becomes repetitive, but there are like specific segments that if you're ever pressured into doing something, like Riot is here to like protect you. It's like you have to contact this, and like with all these things are in place to protect you from any like outside influence, because they understand the dynamic of pressure and how it can come, and they try to find like leverage points against you to try to of course convince you to do it. In some cases, in most cases we hear in the West is just stupidity, right? Like I don't know in what sport was that where there was the player who just like made sure he got subbed out and then went and celebrated with his homie with the money that they made off of the bet.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember in what context that was, but that's just like that's just so dumb. And in most cases that's the case, but. I do think it's good from LEC side to like recognize that circumstances like that can appear, and to give you an out, so to speak, where it's like, oh, if this happens to you, we can protect you. You can report this, and all will be good. You'll be safe, which I think is important. But I imagine now with how like if something goes on for long enough, then it's like. Then it's kind of doomed. Like it's so hard to go back from that, because the implications become so much worse. Now when people drop like the meme, like can't prove it, it's like, oh, like I don't know, when someone's playing bad in the LPL, it's like what the hell are people supposed to think?
Absolutely.
It just ruins the integrity of everything, which is terrible.
Thing. By the way, think about the example I gave earlier. Right, bro, now if you are ever, because it's just been too many of them, if you are ever a talented up-and-coming jungler on an underdog team that loses a game really egregiously, people are just going to immediately think, are you match fixing the game? Even if there's zero reason other than that to suspect you. It's going to just draw people's like ire, and they're going to think, is there something going on here? So you're set a really bad precedent, yeah. And it's going to be very rare. I'll just point this out as well. It's going to be so rare you ever get your own teammates and your own coach come out against you. So also, in any other case where someone gets accused, they might just get away with it, mate. It's going to be really hard to even get them a call. Because in this case, here's the weirdest thing about this, Yamato. Based on the tweets I was reading, because that's all we're getting this information from, it hasn't even been implied to me that anyone like found hard evidence he'd done it, or that he like, and it sounds to me like he was accused by people in his own team and then he sort of admitted it, which is like, that's going to be incredibly rare that ever happens, by the way. Like, I even wonder how that works. I'll give you some speculation. That makes me wonder if they even actually told him something like, if you confess, we can find a way to keep you in the team, or you can stay in the LPL or something. Because otherwise, also, there's another weird thing, right? Think about how it works in America. You know the famous thing, the Fifth Amendment in America, Yamato, where it's the right to not have to incriminate yourself. Basically, if you know that by speaking, you'll actually accidentally let on that you did a bunch of crimes, you're allowed to say, I can't speak on this topic. People don't have shit like that in fucking China, as far as I know. But there's got to be some understanding that, like, this isn't it. Like, no one made this guy confess or say he did it in any way. So I think it's also incredibly rare you'll ever get anyone from their own mouth saying they did it or that they were involved in any way. Like, normally, I can tell you from knowing Richard Lewis, it's really hard to prove match fixing, mate. Like, you essentially have to, for real, have like a paper trail of someone agreeing to do it and then the money going somewhere. You have to track. It's really hard to track all these things. And you can imagine, by the way, it was hard enough 10 years ago. In the modern day, with things like crypto, etc., it's really easy to make the money just disappear, and you can never track it. Like, there's no way to know what anonymous wallet got it, and then that person in real life gives you the money. You know what I mean? Like, there's no connection necessarily. So I also think that to tie into what you're saying, the other reason this sucks is it's very rare, like as you said, that in the future it's going to be so quickly that this comes out. And then secondly, even if it comes out, it's usually going to be a journalist or a rival person or someone else in the league saying it. It's very rare your own team's going to sort of, within a few days, take care of it and be like, yeah, he did do it or whatever, and we don't even need to investigate because everyone's admitted it. Like, that's almost never going to happen, mate. So in the future, when there's people who question you, that'll just never be resolved. Everyone will have to just wonder forever, was that match fixing or not? You'll never know, unfortunately. And in some ways will actually make the reputation even worse of some players, because they might never ever match fix, but there'll be this cloud hanging over them, which I also hate, unfortunately.
Yeah. And just to add to the theory of like a player being under very, very heavy pressures, maybe admitting to it is a form of liberation too, because who knows, maybe this is something that's just been hanging over him for the longest time, and maybe this was just the straw that broke the camel's back.
And one last thing to say is this. In past cases, I mean, I just even straight up was told it by some of my sources about Bo, the jungler that played with you in Karmic Corp. I was also told there's a really weird like environment in the LPL where, here's what's mad. The best way I can describe it is this, Yamato. The legit people and the corrupt people will punish you if you're the one who comes forward publicly and says, yeah, I was involved in it and other people are match fixing too. And the logic goes like this. The corrupt people, for obvious reasons, don't want you to say that because they might get investigated. So they'll publicly be like, yeah, fucking bad, this guy's evil. But then the problem is even the legit people, this is where people don't understand how different culture is. It's actually very similar to what happened in Korea with those StarCraft players that did match fixing. One of the reasons why they were punished super hard, like if you don't know, the player in StarCraft 2 and Brood War, who both did the match fixing, were champions of the Korean League, Yamato, and they've just deleted them from history like some Soviet shit. Like if you ever go to the OGN LoL Park or whatever, it has the OGN that was won by Savior. It wasn't won by anyone, mate. There's no picture there. It just says like no one won it. And same thing in GSL. They had to pretend this life guy never won GSL Codes. It's just no one won it. Right? The point there is this. Because their culture is so based on honor and what you appear like in society, it means that right up until the moment you can hard prove the person did it, even legit people are actually incentivized to say this isn't going on because they don't want it to be going on because it's going to be so dishonorable for everyone, including the sport and its legitimacy as a sport, by the way, the legitimacy of the results. They're going to deny it. But then the worst thing is, the moment there is the evidence and they have to acknowledge it, they're also going to come down so hard on that person, it's going to be crazy. Like, if anything, some of these LPL players I've heard of have got off pretty light, mate. Some of them have even gotten to keep playing League of Legends. Like, those guys in Korea, some of them, as far as I don't believe they ever actually physically went to jail, but some of them got like deferred jail time type things, which if people don't know how that works, the way deferred jail time type things tend to work is more like you have like, it's almost like you've got like a sword of Damocles of jail time. And if you do that crime again, then you definitely get it all. But for now, you don't have to do it. Like, you don't have to go to prison for 1 year or whatever. We'll say you just do. But essentially, they got like, and by the way, those people never played esports ever again in any context, as far as I know. Like, maybe they stream on some third party servers where no one can ban you, you know, but they're not pros in anywhere. So actually, the LPL hasn't even been as harsh as that. But you have seen in the past, like, this has ruined people's careers. But by the way, without betraying anything similar, obviously people accused Bo of this. Did you ever hear, outside of working with him, did you ever hear any similar shit that, like, because I always wondered if that was part of why he came to the West, you know what I mean? There's another chance to play League again.
It's like it's a difficult conversation to navigate for me because I know a lot and I don't want to say anything I can't say, you know.
All right.
It's a tricky one, but I can say that the situation was extremely unfair, you know, very, very unfair. You know, in regards to what you mentioned, like how like the institute always wants to protect itself. Like in those moments, they always want to make the punishment so severe to create as much distance.
Yes.
Kind of similar in a sense, you know, we always bring up Lance Armstrong, but in terms of him getting punished, right? The thing is, bro, everyone was doping, but everyone was doping, and obviously that's the image that you don't want to create, that everybody was doping. So they just went so heavy on him and made him the poster boy for everything that is wrong, so they can kind of remove themselves from the responsibility that plagued the whole competitive system that the institute is trying to protect. So definitely there's that at play too, because as you mentioned yourself, like top esports don't want to have that association. The LPL doesn't want to have that association. So the punishment will be severe, and they pick their people specifically, right? That's just something that happens. Yeah.
No, I know what you mean. Right, first of all, I'll just say, without going into it, I heard something similar about the Bo case. Basically, I just had people tell me it's not as simple as just he was the match fixer. Like, there's more that went on with that, and essentially he got fucked over in a way. But we'll get into that. On the Lance Armstrong one, that's actually the perfect analogy, Yamato, because here's the difference, right? When they put what they did worked, because if you ask a random fan, a million people like me who don't follow cycling will go, oh, Lance Armstrong, who was like, I think he was like a 6-time champion or something, he was banned because he used like drugs in some way. He used some sort of performance, and I believe it was EPO, where they take the blood and they like spin it around or whatever, the fucking oxygenate something, or whatever it was. He used like the most famous tech at the time for like getting increased performance. And basically everyone's heard that story, Yamato. He was like banned and they stripped him of his titles, right? But that's also where everyone ends the story. What they don't mention, as you just pointed out, is even the way they got Lance Armstrong, if anyone's ever watched season 1 of The Wire, it's the ending of season 1 of The Wire. They just got his other cycling racing people to say, yeah, he did it. I know, because I was there, and do like, when criminals, you have to let like the middle tier criminal get off with a lighter sentence because you want to indict the higher up criminal. So you need that guy to witness, say, yeah, I witnessed him do the crime. Basically, they did that. But that means that that's the part that the public doesn't know, Yamato. The people who reported on Lance Armstrong were also potentially cheating. And so I'll give you the craziest analogy ever. If anyone remembers about 15 years ago or something like that, if you remember, there was a famous match-fixing scandal in Serie A, because the craziest part, if you remember, was fucking Juventus, one of the most legendary teams of all time, had like titles stripped from them. And I think they even got relegated to Serie B or something for a couple of years, right? But here's the mad thing. It's not like you then give, because they gave some of the titles, I think, to Inter at the time, who then was on like a streak of wins. It's not like Inter gets the titles, but Inter was secretly match-fixing too. That would be mental. But that is what happened in the case of the match-fixing one. I know what you mean, though. That's definitely what they do. They like absolutely, in English, we say throw the book at you, like give you the harshest penalty, because they want it to seem like, 1, no one does this. 2, they want to really scare off anyone doing it in the future. And then 3, by me being like, wow, that's it makes me like the virtuous one who's really far away, and I'm pointing that you're, even though in this case it's like, we should also examine what we just discussed for 20 minutes, mate, which is how is the system allowing, leveraging, and sometimes even encouraging this behavior? That's more sinister to me than some of the individual cases. Because as I say, it's not as simple as tell players not to be greedy. In some cases here, you almost like need some advanced system like you're talking about. But in the LPL, you need something where like a young player in the LDL can like have an anonymous hotline or something if he feels like his coach is pressuring him or someone's ever made any kind of physical threat from some sort of criminal. You almost need some shit like that. Now, I realize the hard thing with that is, people who are video game officials are going to have a hard time dealing with real life criminals and the police and stuff. That's going to be tricky. But my obvious concern here, mate, is if this can happen in the LPL playoffs in like a fairly decent sized game, how high can it go? Like, are we going to find out in a few years someone did it in an LPL final or something? Think how many amazing game 5s have been in the LPL Pro. There's been some really good banger finals. I don't want to find out that a game 4 or game 5 was just a throw because someone had a machine gun against his head a week before. Like, that's a bummer. That's only cool in a movie, not in real life.
Bro, imagine it comes out, like all those game 5s that were supposed to qualify a rookie to the World Championship.
Don't do it, please. Oh, God, please. Mate, if I found out, obviously, this following segment is a joke, and all like this is not so. Anyway, if I found out Fortic and the Shy were involved with match fixing, mate, I would actually become so radicalized, it'd be crazy, bro. Like, I know, like that low key, or even on the other angle, obviously, is like the obvious worst one would be the idea that, like, Chovy's like the greatest match fixer ever. Like, he just wins all year long, and then we all go, he's surely going to win Worlds. He just wrecks us all. Like, why are you doing that? I know what you mean. This is also why, jokes aside, though, it's really alarming, because it does start making you think of every weird match. Like, was that match fix? You start to think it, don't you? You get paranoid. You do.
It's fucking terrible.
I know.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah.
Also a bummer, because to make it more serious, like, I bring it back to analysis. As I say, actually, after the playoffs, TES looked way better than they had in the group stage. Like, suddenly you're like, hey, maybe this team's like legit. Like, actually, like, funny if it wasn't an naiyou guy generally, it was more like the Jackie guy with the fucking ADC. You think like maybe this team has like potential for the rest of the year, especially. That's like a team that can maybe, be on the outskirts of a world spot or maybe knock someone else out of a world spot. Like, the point is, you couldn't just look past them. So I also feel like it's ruined the TES narrative completely.
And it's like there is this problem of like bringing up like the younger players and bringing them up to the top teams, and here you go losing like a prospect. That's also just sucks. Like we've always been hearing from the LPL side how like the LPL fans are very upset about like results at the World Championship and how sponsorships are dwindling. There's teams that have like a lot of legacy in the league that are just disappearing, right? And this is another just a punch in the gut when you think about the context of survival for LPL. It's it's just sad. It's very sad.
Let's talk actually now about the rest of the playoffs, though, because, bro, you can never get a break with the LPL, can you? Like, I can tell you, as someone who does betting shit, mate, the LPL tortures me, mate. Like think about this. I've spent the whole split. Like, you know what? Now that the BLG Super Team wasn't as good at the beginning as it was, I guess it's obvious the default. Anyone's Engine's the best team out there. They're the Korean team in the LPL. They play good macro. They have the best jungler support. Weibo Gaming, who the fuck are they? Just a bunch of good players with a bad identity. Bro, they didn't even get a game 5. It was 3-1 Weibo Gaming. Like, this is one of these ones where you just like, have I gone through the fucking looking glass? What's going on in the LPL? And then, obviously, by the way, that'd be fine if Weibo Gaming made some. We'll just banged out immediately, straight the fuck out the tournament. See, it's like Zhao, his only job at this point in time is like, right, I've ruined Tarzan's tournament. I can just take the rest of the split off. Oh, right, see you next split, boys. Like, what, you don't want to be in the finals? Nah, I've done my job. Nate, this series is one that, like, again, I've challenged anyone to have predicted this. I don't know anyone who thought Weibo Gaming was beating anyone's Engineer. Like, I actually thought it wasn't even JDG was going to beat them. I thought it would be BLG anyone's Engineer in the final. We'd have the obvious final. So what do you think of Weibo winning this match, mate?
Honestly, I think like last episode, we did such a good job of hyping up Weibo. Honestly, like they had the working pieces. You know, we like in terms of what the roster is on paper, it's like the only thing that was really, you know, missing was just Alex consistency and Zhao just waiting to raise his bar. And what we talked about on the last episode is just Zhao who just has that presence in the game where he just kind of gets it done. He figures out a way to like read the series and what the direction is and kind of morphs himself into what is necessary, which is just Zhao Hu's strength. And Elk also stepped it up. We talked a lot about how Weibo Gaming's just jungle and support is one that can be competitive. And historically, like obviously I think AL very, very much so underperformed. But I do think historically always the toughest matchups for AL were the ones where the jungle on the enemy team could keep up. When Tarzan couldn't find like ginormous advantages or find any angle to kind of break open the game, we had this dynamic last year where top esports would beat AL, but top esports would always lose to Bilibili, but Bilibili would lose to AL because Bilibili had a huge just jungle flaw, and Kanavi would never break against Tarzan, and you could see the dynamic at play. And I think JJ just has done a fantastic job. I think it's just been really good, and I think the Zhao stepped up in this series. And when it comes to AL as well, I do think if you just compare, it's so difficult to find where teams where the effect of coaching is so damn blatant and Fearless. We talked about this so many times, but it's just JDG, what they do coming into game 3, 4, 5s with Tabe just at the helm. You could see the genius at work in terms of finding the angles and recognizing what are the important champions, while there is a very, very boring aspect to, of course, AL, and in terms of how they do their preparation. They've lost that flair, and I think that they really struggle to kind of highlight the strengths of their players in terms of how they pick. Because I think Tabe just has such a good view on which champions his players can play to actually carry the game, and then to create drafts around them to really, really lean into the player's strengths in moments where you work with so little deeper into the series. And I feel like AL have lost that completely. And the last layer I wanted to add is, we always praise the LPL formats because they're always like pretty damn good. But I have to say, this one, in terms of how the groups were built, the 6 top teams, they had very little incentive to like win the best of 3s in the beginning. It's very strange because they all would make playoffs. There was no upper bracket. There was no deeper qualification. In the past, LPL seeding was very important. You could make top 4 instantly if you were top 2, and it made a big deal. Otherwise, you had to run a massive gauntlet. But here you had 8 teams in playoffs. They all started in the upper bracket. And in the end, if Billy lost every single best of 3, it wouldn't have changed what their position would have been. They would have just played against a different team in the first round. Sure, it ended in a way where all the weak teams played against the good teams on paper, but it like looking back at what the format is, it is kind of strange that there was so little stakes in the entire best of 3 system that they played, unless you were in the bottom group, because then you're actually like fighting for playoffs positions and trying to climb. But the top 6 were just kind of set to go into playoffs regardless of what happened.
Also, let's get into some of the details of this match, mate, because I'll tell you one that is actually fucking insane. Is that JJ not only first-timed Warwick jungle, but it's claimed, I haven't had a chance to check this, it's claimed that was the first Warwick jungle ever in the LPL, bro. What? In a playoff game in the lower bracket? What? How am I supposed? By the way, if I'm the other coach, how am I supposed to prepare for that? Like, what even is this? That's mental.
I loved it. I loved it so much. That entire draft was just so clean. AL like picking the trash when Kokinami is available. That was tough in itself. They got the Mundo and then Slam Warwick. And it was such a cool idea because you get away with doing that once because you get the Aurora priority and you get to pick your bot lane. And then you go 4-5 and you can go deep into your pockets because you have to find a counter against Mundo after bans. So the gain of the Warwick succeeding is just so massive because most of the time it's like if people know your counters, you need to answer jungle there and then you can't pick full bot lane. And maybe that's exactly what AL had in mind because they banned like Vi and Bessa to set up that Mundo for success. And in the end, the Warwick, it just kind of makes sense. You heal the damage, percentage health. He was a very tanky body in that game, which is something that you lack deeper into the series. The Drake fight was kind of ugly when he fucked up the E flash, but that's a part of Fearless. It's like, when's the last time this guy played Woke in solo queue? Like, this was probably like something that was just brewing. They pulled up like LoLalytics or something and saw statistically that Warwick is winning against Mundo or some shit, and they just decided to pull it off in a game like this. Just respect to that. Sometimes it's so easy to forget that sprinkled across all the teams that are at the top, it's like, oh, bro, that's the world champ right there, It's just the world champ.
No, I know what you mean. Like the joke is in the West, I don't care about Fnatic. No player's ever won Worlds, but we even forget about players like JJ. Like he's actually a forgotten player, even though yes, he was not only a world champion, he was on a bunch of good teams. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've got another angle as well because actually, funnily enough, it was in also the game 4 here, bro. One of the sad things about the way this match went is because in the team Anyone's Legend, even at their peak, even their own fans know that Hope isn't the best ADC. Like they've all seen how MSI Worlds went. They know that he's good enough for the LPL, but he's not even the best LPL ADC. And so unfortunately, he's become, funny enough, it's appropriate, he's become like Crownie was in your team. He's just the go-to player who gets blamed if you lose the game, basically, because it's an ADC. You can go, you either didn't carry the team fight or you blew up in the team fight. It's an easy person to blame, just like the jungler is in the analogy I gave earlier. But in this particular case, all the fans I saw were just hating on Hope. Now, listen, certainly I don't think he's like an amazing ADC. I've always thought he's like above average, but he's a little bit overrated. Obviously, if you told me, because it's implied Jacqueline wants to come back if people don't know, if you told me they can get Jacqueline, yeah, I'd go for that. I'd go for that gamble. But mate, as much as Hope wasn't great in this series, I'll tell you who I think needs more blame in Anyone's Legend. Fucking Shanks, bro. Is this guy just allowed to be a bomb? He was shit in this game for the till year 2. Like, the reason I think this sucks so badly is I'll give you my analogy. Mate, Shanks is like the fucking Vladdy of the LPL. Because Vladdy really did last year in winter have a fucking sick split. He looked so good. That's what Shanks did in spring. He looked fucking unbelievably good. You were like, wait, is this the best like mid laner / player in the LPL? Like he was looking smurfing, but similar to how Vladdy now is just like a good player with flaws. Mate, the Shanks guy never made it after that split. Like he's consistently like underperformed because the difference is I don't have the expectations for Hope. I know Flandre is at the point in his career where he's just being a vet, just doing what he can. Shanks for me, it can't just be the support ADC and fucking jungler. I need this mid laner to carry the games. Like these are this. Like if I look at this series on paper, by the way, ignore history. The most weak position should be mid lane. Like Shanks, this is your time to beat up old man Zhao. Who, for fuck's sake, like he's right there, ready to take it out. If you actually play at like a world class level, you beat him. So I also thought Shanks was kind of shit in. I know people might like him better than Hope, but I think he should get some criticism too. He's been a bit underwhelming. Thoughts?
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. I do think this is where you need to gain an advantage for sure. Like Zhao didn't have a good split, like he simply didn't. He awakened for sure. I think that in regards to the priority they gave him and making sure that the jungle mid pairing is good, I feel like the overall impact just wasn't enough because I do think, the thing that made Hope and Kale so much weaker, in my opinion, is the fact that they were always on the side of the weaker bot lane pairing. Yes. And we've talked extensively on the show about what the meta currently is, and you need to be in a position where your bot lane is stronger. Like you're playing, the enemy team gets to pick Yunara Lulu, and you drop 4-5 with AD. Like that's very risky. It kind of reminds me of that one series I remember where people kind of blamed Viper when they played against Billy Billy at the World Championship, when he had to play like Jin and MF in spots that were just like not maneuverable. You just couldn't find good ways of creating impact. While in that game where I mentioned that they played MF bot lane, the enemy team is slamming Swain and Zahen into Galio, Nafiri, these all-in champions, into these very, very durable champs, and Xiao just had his hand on the pulse. Like, he just knew what he needed to pick in order to kind of break the game, because that Swain was so strong. Like, that moment where he's just standing and tanking 4 people, it was just amazing to see. It was good to see the experience really shine through, because I think that's like Xiao is just the embodiment of that, and it's good to see him play well.
Yeah. Also, he has that thing, which I'll tie. This is funny enough. I think in some degree, they're all in this point in their career. Faker, Xiaohu, and Caps. Well, look, if you go to their primes, technically it wasn't even in the 2020s. These were all players from the last decade. The joke is these guys are so goated, they're actually still bullying the people who were supposed to replace them. Like, they should have been replaced by the humanoids and the Vladdies of the world, but they just haven't been. Like, they have on some level. Those are excellent players. But the difference is, just like how Caps just won the LEC with basically like a super clutch player, Faker's done it at the Worlds the last 3 years as well. The thing about Xiaohu that I love about this part in his career is he doesn't do what Rookie does, mate. He doesn't think, I'm going to be the best middler in the LPL and win by bit. He knows, like, that part of my career is over. What I have to do is, like a veteran in any sport, I have to pick my angles, mate, and pick my spots. And in fact, big pressure games like this, the other thing I love about players like that is they don't have nerves, mate. They can fuck up. They can make a misplay and they can hit. But what I love is it always feels like they're just calm in these matches. Like, they just look. And if you give them that moment of weakness, that's where being a veteran is fucking dope, mate. Like, they just don't make mistakes in that sense. Like, they just get that one big. They know the difference between, if you're a rookie, you try and make 5 home run players to win one game. They know you just need the one key player. You make that one big play and you win the whole game and the whole series. So yeah, this is why I keep telling people, I don't care what his numbers are, his stats. You can never write someone like Xiaohu out, mate. There's a reason this guy's one of the most legendary players of all time. Like, think about the last 3 or 4 years. How many fucking upsets are on his card at this point in time, mate? And these aren't upsets over nobodies. These are upsets over other contenders. Remember, he's beaten LNG with the fucking Weibo in the past. Anyone's like I said, mate, if they'd have gone to the final, I might even have favoured them to beat PLG, but they didn't get to go there because Xiaohu took them out 1 round too early. They didn't even have to play JDG. I thought it was just nuts. The only problem is, though, go on.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you just made me think about how, like, you have to beat out the legends, which made me think about how sad it really was that Perks wasn't allowed to go to Fnatic.
True.
Like, that would have just fucking changed the trajectory of everything, because you had the come up of Humanoid and Larson was like ramping up as well, and then you have Perks on a very strong Fnatic at the same time. The dynamic of that they never got to play out, because like Perks' return wasn't really the same. He got to play on Vitality, and he wasn't surrounded by players that made finals or competitive in the finals. Like that could have changed everything, because it would be fun to see Perks in that moment be the player that you described, like in terms of being like the legend that comes on the new guys. But we never got that, man. We never got that.
And also, the other thing that would be cool is, similar to this scenario where you have Knight and Xiaohu doing it, there'd be 2 elite super veteran mid laners that you'd have had to get past, instead of it just being Caps. If you were Larson and Humanoid, you'd have had to battle these guys. Like, the joke is, you might have to battle Perks before you even get the fucking Caps. Like, I agree, it would actually level the whole region. It would have made it stronger. All right, one other thing, if we project forwards now, is this. Right, obviously, we can skip some of the other stuff, but let's talk a bit about JDG, right? JDG, all split long, have been weird in this sense, Yamato, which is that they have really defined strengths which work really well against specific opponents, but they're also, for a team that's like a contender, they can be really flawed too. And even the players that are good, like Onkyu, they can have champions in games where they're completely off, mate, where they're just not carrying. So, were you surprised that they made the finals? What are your thoughts in this overall on JDG's run?
I did think that JDG, like, we mentioned it on like we mentioned on earlier episodes. There's qualities there that as people walked into matches against JDG, if you're sitting there and hoping that they are going to be the ones to fuck up to give you the game, you are going to eventually be at a disadvantage, because JDG created like winning game states. Like they was very reoccurring. And then it was always like overreaches and throws, and a lot of leads were like meaningless. it's the same way people thought Vitality was a dark horse in the LEC, because it's like they managed to beat KC suddenly because they just got a massive lead in a BO1, and they had the lane and the early game capacity to just qualify in games in a way that just was overwhelming, but they just threw in miraculous ways. And I thought JDG was in that same boat. And as things progressed, especially in that series that went to 5 games with AL, it's as if they really tapped into discipline for the first time, because they managed to slow down. They managed to actually choose their fights rather than taking every fight. And suddenly they look like a very tough team to beat. Similar to how like D+ suddenly when they played against T1, that was a team that could create leads and could get advantages, but they were just meaningless because you could never trust them. And then against T1, suddenly in the game 3, 4, 5, they were like, oh, they played on range, they played on abilities, they didn't overextend when it wasn't necessary. They played to the strength of their composition rather than taking every fight possible. And you just kind of wait for that to happen. Sometimes it never happens. And in this case for JDG, I just think in terms of really recognizing what the strength of the team is and leaning into that, that's just in the context of what AL has lost now. Now that's what JDG has gained. Because in that series against AL, they really tapped into that strength. Against Weibo in particular, I thought JDG would win, but I also have to say that Weibo, in terms of how Era played in that series against JDG, like I didn't recognize them at all. That was very, very like poor level of play. I think that Nico game was one of the worst ones I've seen so far. But on the other side, Vampire is also doing a lot better with the range supports, and Gala is looking fantastic. It seemed like everything just kind of fell into place at the same time, because it's amazing that we went from the rumors of Junja being replaced to then having like really, really good carry games. So I hope that's out of the picture completely now.
Yeah. No, listen, like there was moments in the playoffs where Honky was awesome. I actually think Junji, if any, was the one who overperformed. Like, I agree with you. There's a reason why this guy was criticized. And a lot of people also treated it like it's a package deal or some shit. Like, you have to have him to have Honky. Actually, he's been like the sleeper, better player as the playoffs came around. He has some massive series, mate. All right, what about this? Then before we go on to the final, obviously, Yamato, in life, everyone should consider what their nutrition is if they're getting their vegetables right.
Yes, sir. You know, it's like the what we eat, what we consume. That's our fuel. You know, that's our fuel, and the purity of the fuel is so damn important. And I think in terms of maintaining consistency and making sure that the floor of your nutrition, so to speak, is high, the easiest way to do it is with AG1. It keeps you anchored in a way that you know that you can just start the day with a very, very good decision. You know, AG1 is just a daily health drink, clinically shown to, of course, support gut health and fill in common nutrient gaps. Especially nowadays, you know, it's freaky in terms of how the industry of making food, in terms of how processed things are and how fast things need to be done, and the mass consumption that needs to occur in terms of making sure that your favorite crop grows 24/7 every day of the year. Like, it's very, very unnatural in terms of the process. And in that process, in terms of making sure that everything grows larger and everything is available, you lose a lot of course, valuable nutrients. So even that aspect is very difficult to make sure that you topped up. But the fact that AG1 has 75 plus ingredients, including 5 clinically studied probiotic strains, it is just the perfect place to start. It's like when you travel, you can take the AG1 packs. I think that also helps. So just making sure that the baseline is always good is super helpful. It helps your energy. The superfoods and the B vitamins in AG1 provide nutritional support to help you stay steady and consistent. You have the immune health, daily immune support that helps you stay at your best. You know, it's easy to forget when you are, of course, healthy, but when you get sick, you just realize like you only have one wish, and that is to recover. So making sure that the baseline is good and that you have the vitamins is super important. I already mentioned the the probiotic strains. The gut health is also something that is very, very underrated in terms of making sure that the gut health is good, in terms of how it affects your inflammation in your body, how it can even affect your sleep. Making sure that your gut works good is also something that can impact your life in a way that It's very, very difficult to measure, but it's super, super good. As I mentioned, it's like having a high floor for your nutrition is super good, because at least on the days where you have poor nutrition, you have AG1 in your system, and for some reason, you're on the road and you have to eat some fast food, at least you got yourself covered, which is a very, very comfortable place to be. So, with that being said, go to drinkag1.com/summoning to get an AG1 flavor sampler and a bottle of vitamin D3 plus K2 for free in your AG1 welcome kit with your first AG1 subscription order. Only while supplies last. That's drinkag1.com/summoning. Thank you to AG1 to assuring our healthiness. That's how we do these episodes for hours and hours and end and yap on end. We stay healthy. When do we get sick? We never get sick, you and I, Thorin. We're in the pocket always.
Us, we just power through, even if we do anyway, thanks to things like this.
Yeah.
By the way, that's actually one thing of the AG pack that I got sent that I use every time it's available. I already am someone who uses a vitamin D supplement anyway. Spoiler, I live in Northern Europe, for fuck's sake. But I actually love theirs, because theirs is like the dropper. Normally, I used to take a pill for the vitamin D. The best thing about the dropper, mate, is you just drop one drop on your tongue. It's fairly flavorless, and you just drink some after. You've instantly taken your vitamin D there. It's not some pill that's hard to swallow. It's actually super easy. So, and if people don't know, I actually do find vitamin D supplementation is legit. Like, you do need that if you're in certain parts of Europe. So yeah, it's a good one. Okay, if we talk now a bit about the final, Yamato, I've got to say this final was also quite unexpected to me, because if you remember the 5-game series they had in the upper bracket, I was expecting something more like that. But I tell you what, here's where I want to start with this final, bro. Mate, if you are a BLG fan, this couldn't almost not have been a more perfect end to the split, because think about some of the question marks coming into this split. I'll tell you a massive one everyone, even BLG fans, had to admit is, we've got a super team, except one of the super team players that on paper is a super team player who isn't earning his keep is fucking Bin. Where was that guy for ages? All of last year, we were just hating on this guy justifiably because he was mega arrogant, but at the same time, he was very rarely ever turning up. Like, it really was the night show last year, and then he was doing fuck all. Mate, you think he came out of a time machine? This was classic Bin. This was fucking dope. What do you think of this final in that sense?
No, I honestly thought across the board, JDG was actually contesting. AD, support, mid lane, jungle. There was punches back and forth that were very relevant to the game state. But the main thing that just made sure that JDG had a very difficult time pushing it over the finish line was the state of top lane. In every damn game, top lane was a massive problem. Xiaoshu, he's on a big team for the first time, right? He's made it to the finals for the first time. He could not keep up at all. This was vintage Bin. This was old school Bin, and we've been missing it. I was very upset with Bin because he's supposed to carry on the conversation about being a GOAT contender. This is GOAT shit right here. Like, doing this in a final. I think that the top gap was so immense because everything else 4 for 4. It was very, very competitive. Like, JDG lost with gold leads because in most of these games, whether it was I think it was the Gwen, there was the Renekton, even in that game that they were, of course, losing because of the draft into the Kog'Maw Lulu, which was brilliant from JDG because they ran out of ADs in 4-5, and Kog'Maw just made a lot of sense into the Alistar. That was very nice. Even in that game, the Renekton was very, very dangerous, and he found ways to actually connect into the game, which just wasn't enough because of the draft gap. It felt very nice to see OG Bin. I think we couldn't have asked for more in terms of getting hype from him coming into this international, because Keen has been so damn good that he has created such a distance from himself and anybody else. And obviously, in a world where Genji exists, I still think that obviously they are a massive favorite. If they don't win this tournament, it should be very sad. That should be like a big shocker. It should be impossible. But Bilibili has shown now that on an individual level, I think that they could actually keep up and find certain games they could win in. I can see them taking a game, maybe 2 on a good moment if the draft is just right, which is a great place to be in comparison to, let's say, a month ago.
No, by the way, I'm with you. Like, if your bin last year did so much damage to your career trajectory, it's crazy. Because before that, we were all on board with, like, maybe this is the GOAT player. By the way, think how rare it is a Chinese player gets to be the GOAT of a position. It's pretty big to be in that position. And then last year, the world's final is fucking Doran versus Perfect. Like, if I'm bin, I'm like, I'm looking in the mirror, like, homie, how far have we fallen? Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I got to get my shit together, mate.
Put it.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even have to say anything about them. It's just like, bloody hell, if that's the competition for the World Championship. But luckily, this is the bit I want to see play, because I'll tell you what, by the way, in a minute when we talk about them at first stand, I'm now way more interested in the BLG story. I was going to be bummed out otherwise. Actually, this is fucking dope. Similarly, another big question mark for BLG is obviously they ran it back and brought Jun back, didn't they, after that awesome time on JDG last year. But the question would be, how would it work? Like, there was ups and downs this split. Mate, in this final, I'm not going to say he carried the whole final, but he had a couple of games that just reminded you, this guy has really fucking strong hands, bro. Like, he can be a knockout jungler if he wants to. He had a couple of games in this series that were banging.
Oh, it's just, I feel the way he jungles also is so unorthodox. Because every other jungler that is jungling at the highest level is really, really locked into hitting the beats in the game. Like,
Yes.
if they are locked in terms of making sure that they're ready for the crab, they understand how to, make sure that they always keep up in farm. And if for some reason the enemy jungle slips, they are so quick to punish you by taking your raptors, taking your red, and suddenly there's just a 2-level lead because the jungler is just so in tune with that. That's like your Tarzan, that's your Inspire, that's your Skumond. But the way Shun approaches it is like he finds so many unique gank angles, and he finds it in a way where it's very difficult to punish him. And to have such a jungle on the enemy team where tracking him is so damn difficult, I don't feel like that's anybody that we can compare him to right now. Like, nobody else jungles like that. I think that the Kiana game is really stand out because he finds a level 3 gank angle, then he ganks top 2, he burns the flash, and then he returns into top, and he's falling behind in CS, but finds so much efficiency in that. And it kind of reminds you of the strongest version of Bilibili, because Shun did that job where he just supported the scrappiness and the strength of the lanes. And for him to find room to do that in this meta without getting punished is very, very impressive. It's a high-risk style, but it works if your laners are as good as these guys. So it's really, really cool to see that he has taken his own unique spin on how to approach the jungle, because the other style, he also has shown this split that he knows that super well. And we always, the question was, it's like, it's so cynical just to fucking drop in Shun again, because that was the golden days. But I think it's fair to say that in the end, it has worked. He's playing so damn well.
Yeah.
He was good on JDG last year, and it's good to see everybody reunited, minus, of course, Elk. Like, if Viper comes into the team, doesn't matter how much memories we have together, it's Viper.
And also, because one thing I do like to do is I don't like to do that thing where if you win, then everyone was the best and everyone's the best. No, there's like certain people get the credit and some people don't get as much. I'll tell you what, mate, if you are Viper, this is the fucking good times, mate. You know, in Hanwha Life, you had to not only be the best at your position, you had to basically be the best player in the server to win. Sometimes it was really hard work. In this team, bro, I feel like he just won an LPL split, like jogging. He wasn't even running full speed half the time. Like, I don't even feel like he had maybe like, one playoff series where he was really good. He wasn't even tested. Low key, as much as he had the big profile coming into the team, he's actually had a pretty easy time. Like, when you think of all the frustrations he must have had in some of those Hanwha Life rosters, this is fucking like having a vacation, mate. He must be loving it back in the LPL.
I thought it was strange, like a narrative that was going around is that he went to the LPL for money, but he could have gotten more money on HLE.
Yeah, you'd
like he could have just been paid way more on HLE, and he is now playing with a support that can play everything. Imagine now the current meta in the context of playing Lulu,
Seraphine, but we'll forget
Ama. Yeah, and they played the Alistar, sure, but imagine playing
he was
with the
pretty
Light.
good. Yeah, sure.
Like, imagine playing with the Light now.
Yeah.
Like, that would be tough.
The Light is another player that needs to go on that list of, like, was exposed by Fearless. I used to think this guy was really good when he could pick, like, 3 champions, Yamato. When he actually has to play 5 champions in a series, it gets fucking rough. It gets rough, mate.
And no Peanut, and in Fearless, it's rough for the guy, 100%.
Yeah.
But it's like the just the context of like getting to play with a support that can play everything lane-wise to really highlight your strength as a player, and on top of that, playing with a mid laner that is going to be consistently good and it's consistently a winner, like that is already you take a massive pay cut for just that, and it's Viper also has experience in the LPL, and I do think that he ramped up. I think he's playing really, really well, but it's also a great comfort in the sense that he doesn't need to do super much. But it's like when push comes to shove, there were moments where like the lane phases he won them super early. I think that in terms of how he lanes together with On, it just seems to work super well. And in the context of this meta, where there's a lot of room to carry through AD, it's also fun to see that. Like Billy, I feel like in terms of what we've seen, especially over the last 2 weeks, I think that they have delivered on the promise 100%. And once again, it's the same old thing. It's like you gotta give players like this credit until they're out. They can play like the best player in their position the next game, and they smoked the LPL.
I was trying to find the exact tweet, but I couldn't find it. But basically, there was a graphic that was shown on screen during the finals, Yamato, that I have to mention to set up the night topic. Bro, this is so good, it's crazy. There's some stat that in like Knight's career, he's made like 50% of the finals of the tournaments he's played in, Yamato. Of the tournaments, like, what? Bro, what? That's gross. That's so mental. This guy just is the chosen one, mate. It's mental, innit? It's so bad. Because he did it, by the way, it's not even like he was 1v9 in this final. He was just the best mid laner on the best team. But like, he's still, like, as you saw from that last game, he is just a magical player in the LPL. He's unbelievable, isn't he?
It's yeah, Knight is fucking special. I don't know. It's so nice to see that he has mastered so many different styles, and the meta is in a very good place for him too. It's like Ahri is a good champ. Holy, Aurora is a good champ. Fantastic. We're gonna see some Magi's being punished. It's like we are in a world where we get to see him play Ahri, Aurora, Syndra. Just brilliant. I like it. It doesn't get me excited enough to think they can beat Genji, but this is a good place to be. This is a very, very good place to be. Yeah, everything is falling into place, and I think that it's the narrative around LPL, the fact that they don't have an official broadcast, all of that jazz. We always have to fight the good fight. Knight is very underrated as a player in the conversation of Western like discourse. So I hope Knight gets just shows off at the next international. Oh, you're muted, Thorin. Wait, I don't hear you.
It's actually on screen now. The stat is, in all the tier 1 tournaments he's played in, he has made the finals in 54.1%. It's even higher than 50%. It's even more nuts. So the joke is, like, it's mathematically likely that he's just in the final of everything, which is like, what? Okay. So that's nuts in itself. Also, I'll give you another angle that's bonkers here, which is, this is where I'm actually getting really bored of the discourse in League, bro. Because here's what I don't get, Yamato, right? In other games that I follow, people love to celebrate all sorts of different great players. Like in Counter-Strike, we don't even just celebrate the stars. We celebrate the in-game leaders and the support players and the people who are the coach. But here's what's weird in League. People keep doing this weird thing where you can't talk about Chovy and Knight, because when you're talking about them, remember, right, if you were to make a category of what these guys are good in, they're essentially good in every single thing to almost a 10 out of 10 level, except winning Worlds. That's it. And in Knight's case, by the way, he basically almost won Worlds. He came about as close as you can come without winning it. But people have these convos where you're trying to sit down like, hey, I'm a massive fan of League, LPL and LCK are the 2 best regions. Let's talk about players that dominate these regions, split after split after split after split. And even a bad split for them is like make top 3 of the finals. And a bad game is like just have 1 or 2 good games in a best of 5. That should be like a mega conversation that we can all go back and forth. And instead, it feels like every time we do it, some dickhead just comes in like, yeah, but they have won Worlds like Faker. And it's like, why are you shutting the conversation down? Like, that isn't even the conversation for now. Like, that's an appropriate conversation during Worlds. Like, it's not an appropriate conversation in like Winter Split. Like, in Winter Split, by the way, Chovy and Knight are better than Faker. They've proven it. Literally, Faker can have every possible teammate. He's not as good as these guys domestically. Now, sure, there's a great conversation if you want to have that conversation about what does it take to win Worlds, and is it more like, you know, the old saying in English is that it's better to be lucky than good. I would say in esports, once you get to a certain threshold, it's better to be clutch than it is to be the best, actually. Sometimes the worst position to be in is to be the best player, but you're not as good in a final, for example. That's an interesting convo, but I feel like that's the only convo we have. Whenever it's Knight and Chovy, it's like everyone. This is why, by the way, Yamato, I intentionally went out of my way on camera to say, like 3 or 4 years ago, I think Rookie is the best player to ever play League of Legends. Because when I realised it's time to actually, since it is what I think, it's time to actually give people permission to have a different opinion than the consensus. Like, if you want it, the best player ever has to also be clutch and win worlds, yeah, then you can have it as Faker, fine, go for it. You can have it as a different player too if you want. But I do think that we should be able to have like interesting conversations that aren't just like a little kid like, yeah, but that guy would lose to Superman in a fight. Who cares about that? We're not talking about that right now. You're just ruining an otherwise good convo. Because if the only thing we can say about Chovy and Knight is they didn't win Worlds, you're actually saying nothing about Chovy and Knight. That's not that. By the way, here's what I'm going to say. That is not the defining quality of their whole careers, because they wouldn't even be having that conversation if they hadn't done all these other things. Like, if you're a fan of T1, I'll explain it to you very simply. You know when they go, why do we have to do this every year? Because every year these guys smurf on their whole world except for at one tournament. That's why we have to do it. It's the other way around. You do realise, by the way, guys, I've got some really bad news for you. The day Faker doesn't win Worlds anymore, he's going to become less relevant in these conversations because he's not the best mid laner and he isn't winning his domestic region. So the second he isn't winning Worlds, that's the only thing keeping Faker relevant. The joke is, for Knight and Chovy, they're relevant every fucking day of the year except when they lose, basically, at the end of the year. Because I feel like you can't... like, I once said back about Faker that he made it like a monotheism in League, whereas before, you had all the great players in the position. That analogy's gone too far. It's become literal. It's like we actually have to worship this guy's God, and it's blasphemy to reference anyone else. Whereas I think Knight's a great example, mate, of a player where it's like he is a contender for the best ever. Like, if I just took the nameplates off and watched like 5 hours of this guy's gameplay, I don't know that I have seen a better player. Like, Chovy's excellent with other content. This guy's a contender for the best player I've ever seen play League of Legends, mate. He's fucking unbelievably good, right?
I think the standout when it comes to Knight, specifically the meta where it's like carrying the torch of what Yahoo was so damn good on, in terms of, when I think back to JDG 23, when he basically, the meta was Lissandra, Vex, these champions, Annie. I don't think that anyone... Nico,
yeah,
like nobody has come close to his proficiency on.
Well, I still think he had the best Nico ults of any mid laner ever. He had some unbelievable ones, didn't he?
His level of awareness and just finding angles and presence in fights was just unbeatable. Like, he was so insane on those champions in particular, and no one can take that away from him. I think that nobody has ever been better than him in that meta. And that doesn't mean like he's terrible or bad in the other meta. He's really, really good. It just happens to be that Chovy is better in the other contexts. Yes. Like the following year at MSI, which we of course we hail as some of the best games of Chovy's career, his highest peak coming into that MSI, when like Aurelion Sol and Corki and the hyperscalers in the mid lane were super relevant. It's like, nobody's gonna touch Chovy on that. And we hold high praise to the players that can maintain this level throughout the entire year and find the like actually play the games where nobody like can reach that level of performance ever. Like that must mean something. It must mean something. But something that you always notice is, especially because it's just entertainment, right? People engage in entertainment, and it's like the box that people keep themselves in is the amount of information that they have kind of consumed on the topic, and they apply that same box onto other people. If you try to expand beyond that box, it's like, here's the LPL, here's these games that they played. It's like, it's just not relevant because they want everyone to see through the same box that they view their entertainment through. And it's not only in entertainment, that happens in politics too, or any real discourse. It's like, I see it through this box, you need to also answer through that box. It's like, yeah, but my box is way bigger. I have all of this context here that allows me to have a different view, because in the end, it's like the Dunning-Kruger thing is about how people want to be very smart with the information that they've consumed and not go beyond that, right? So this is just something that happens time and time again. It's like I'm streaming during scrims, and then suddenly, like the backseaters come through and they want to tell me how to coach and all that jazz. It's like, yeah, I watched this game and I think you should do this, Yamato. It's like, bro, it's like I'm working this here for 15 years. What's happening here? It's just funny. It's very funny.
Also, another thing I always think about Knight is, in some ways, it is actually a tragedy that the whole narrative is just he didn't win Worlds. Because here's the weirdest thing of all, Yamato. This is where actually Chovy carries a much bigger burden than Knight, in my opinion. Chovy has been on the stone-cold favourite to win Worlds, somewhat like 3 or 4 times now. As far as I know, Knight's done it once, bro, ever, which was just that JDG lineup. Like, even the BLG team we're talking about almost won. They weren't even that good until the Worlds bit. Remember, it wasn't even Worlds fucking Swiss. It was the playoffs when they went crazy. That was the one you were referring to earlier with the Handball Life match, etc. Like, they weren't even considered like a favourite at the time. And I always will point this out about Knight because it is what makes him so insane. Who is his competition? It can't just be Korean mid laners. Like, where's the Chinese player? Like, his competition in China, by the way, is Shanks. Like, remember, every winner of Worlds from the LPL was a Korean mid laner. There's never been a Chinese mid laner. Like, that's why this guy is just like the chosen one of the LPL for my money. Like, it's funny. People never diss Uzi Yamato and say he's a bomb and didn't win Worlds. Yeah, Knight's arguably been better than Uzi at Worlds at this point in time. Like, he's played 1 billion times in a row. Uzi had a couple of good runs and a couple of all right runs. And many, many times where he was the focus. In fact, famously, the style of his team was the entire team played for him. That's not even what Knight does. In fact, if you notice, every year, I actually tend to critique Knight and his coach for not playing tonight enough. I actually think he's too unselfish. It seems like he always sacrifices himself in draft, or he plays a bit safe in one of the games at Worlds, where it's like, I've always thought this guy should just go all out, because I do think this guy's like the fucking chosen one, mate. Like, if the LPL's ever going to win with a Chinese mid laner, it's going to be this guy. And at this point, he's won everything except Worlds. Like, he's had an unbelievable career. And as you say, his champion pool, in fact, the real irony is because he keeps playing as at Worlds, people also go on about that. That's about the only diss you can give his champion pool. His champion pool's unreal. By the way, in your list of champions, he's been so good for so long. We didn't even throw in like Silas and shit like that. He's like an unbelievable history in his career of playing it. So I do think he's fucking unbelievably. And then this final as well just shows you, like, what can you do against, at least in the LPL, he's unbeatable, mate. It's very, very hard to beat this guy.
Agreed. It's like everything we talked just really just signifies why Viper made such a good damn decision in the offseason. Like, this is a very, very good team to be a part of. I think it was either this or Genji for some reason, if they wanted to get rid of the ruler, which obviously wasn't happening. So I think joining Bilibili, like with everything that we've mentioned, was just a very smart decision.
Yes. Along those lines, though, because we'll come back in a minute and talk about JDG, obviously now that means BLG and JDG are both going to first stand and they're going to be the representatives, etc. Right? On Polymarket, they have the BLG, they already have the matches up already for first stand. So we have BLG versus FearX. So obviously FearX was the team that beat T1 and shocked the world and came second. They even took a game off Genji in the final, which was big. They're going to pay BLG. Here's what's interesting, Yamato. If we'd have done this conversation we sort of did last week, I might have even said FearX might win that, man. Maybe it'll be one of those Korean number 1, Korean number 2 as the final. I've got to say, this match, though, really changed how I think about this matchup at this one, because now actually BLG, according to the traders on Polymarket, are the favourite. They're at 64%. So there's 2 parts to this. One, I do think that's some nice value on FearX, by the way. Like, if you really think LCK is better, and I have to say, I did see fucking FearX beat T1, so part of me thinks that those are pretty good, like, numbers for them. But also, I do look at this series, and this is why the conversation we just had is so important, bro. Because my key question is this: is Bin joining us at the first stand? If Bin is going to turn up like that final, mate, fuck it. BLG's playing Genji and they're making the final too. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm kind of interested by this one. Part of me, I feel like this is more of a coin flip series for me, man. I'm a bit torn on this. What do you think? Who's going to win this series, and what do you think of the numbers?
I feel like this is very fair for like Bilibili. I feel like this is a good opportunity here, because in my mind, when I just compare Bin, Clear, and Vikla versus Knight, this is
pretty good, right?
This is tough. It's like the expectation that Diablo and Kellin and Raptor is going to break Viper on and of course Shun. That's a very, very big demand. Very, very big demand. And while BFX have very, very strong team play, I just have I don't have the level of trust when it comes to their solo laners to not actually fall apart. I think that they're heading into this international, and it's going to be a different form of pressure, I feel like. And I would say that Bilibili should be a big favorite. I think that they will win. I feel pretty good about it. I just think that Vikla as a player, I think that he has managed to hide in plain sight in a lot of cases, and I do think that BFX have done a good job of exposing the current weaknesses of some of the LCK teams. But against Bilibili here, just based on nameplates alone and the fact that they've showcased that they are capable of playing at this level, is already enough for me to be very, very sold. And I think I don't know how logistics will be. That's like the main question mark, but everyone's facing the same thing. We're not playing in the LCK studio, which I think is a good thing because everyone needs to fly out to Brazil. So that's also a good thing, and also very new for a lot of the BFX players. They flew out to Hong Kong, right? Did very well against D+, so it seems like they know how to deal with that. But this is going to be a different kind of beast where you fly very, very long and have to deal with jet lag, actual jet lag, not the one that C9 had to deal with to fly over to get smoked by Furia, but more on that later.
Yes. Oh yeah, by the way, the other thing I also to mention as well, because of the format, which by the way, the format's way better now, it's BO5. It's not a cheeky little BO3. We can get. So the other thing is you have to actually win 3 games against BLG. That's the other thing that I think, actually, I'm with you. I think overall the numbers do make sense. Like, look, if you're a mad LCK fan and you really believe that everything's better, the macro's better, and the only reason BFX lost is because they had to play Gen G, fair enough, by the way. That was the team that beat them. With that said, though, I'm with you. I do think this is fair for BLG overall. If you're a BFX believer, cool, you like those numbers too, but I think actually BLG should win this one. They should be the better team overall. Right, what about this then? What we'll do is we'll leap back into some first-hand stuff in a second. First of all, I want to ask you about JDG in the final of LPL, though, because I've got to say, one part that did disappoint me a little bit, Yamato, is I'll tell you who I actually think was one of the reasons this final wasn't as close as it should have been. Sadly, it was Gala from JDG. This guy had a couple of fucking nightmare games. In England, we call this it's called having a screamer, where you just have a terrible game and you just fuck. This guy's a way better player than he showed in this match, mate, but I feel like he did not show up to some of these games.
There was some very, very questionable deaths. Like if there was a heat map for his deaths, they were always around the Gromp area. Like at the Gromp, there were always dashes that were so questionable. It looked very uncharacteristic. It seemed like Gala overplayed in a lot of cases. The team fights looked frustrating for him, but I've never seen Gala, like, there's been occasions in regular splits where I've seen that impatience, but being impatient in like a high stake game, this is not something that I'm used to see from Gala. While I think, while we already mentioned that top lane was probably like the biggest gap, I do think that Gala, you're the one with the LPL experience here. It's like the other homies are from LCP. Of course, Junja was on EDG in the past, but still, you're the one. You're the captain here. You're the captain. So there were some moments that were very disappointing. I'm with you there.
Because that's the problem. It's hard to go too hard on JDG because, one, I actually thought anyone said he was going to be there myself. And then also, when you run down the roster, I can't hit on Zhaozhou and Vampire, mate. They're not people who are in fucking LPL finals. Like, this is actually, like, they're already a great split for those guys. But similarly, like, listen, Honky at least did it in Ashley. But I know what you mean. If I look at it, like, Gala, mate, you're the guy who's the veteran. You've won already. You even were really good at times last year in IG. Like, I hope this would be a series where it was, like, on paper, Gala versus Vipers supposed to be, like, a marquee matchup. Like, and it's the LPL, bro. It's the ADC league. So that's why I picked him. I just thought, like, if I'm going to praise you when you have awesome series and get all pentakills, I've got to point out when you, like, shit the bed a little bit like this. Because I do think if he played even 5% better, this would have been a more interesting series, mate. They had their chance. Even though it's a 4-gamer, it wasn't as clean as it looked. Like, actually, there were moments that back and forth. I mean, obviously, the joke is the game 4 was ridiculous. Like, some of that was outrageous.
Yeah. No. I'm excited for the trajectory of this JDG, 100%. Bilibili will be a very, very tough cookie to crack, and it's fun to see the Tabe magic. I feel like he's learning about his players, learning about the strengths, and I think beating Bilibili or not was up to Bilibili at this point. I think that getting second place against the field, especially like beating out AL, that feeling must just feel fantastic. But in that final, they are outmatched, and I can give someone a little bit of a pass for feeling a sense of desperation because the team fights did look pretty damn hard to win. They had winning game states on times, they had gold leads, but the BOG team fighting is just tough to break, very tough to break.
Right, let's talk a bit about first stand. We'll start with the JDG angle, right? Yamato, I've criticised many things about Riot and their national tournaments before. What is going on with the seeding? So wait a minute. If I'm BFX, I play BLG while G2 plays Team Secret Worlds. What? And then in the other one, this is even worse. While Lion plays Loud, mate, if I wasn't paid to watch these games, I wouldn't even tune into that game. What are we talking about? JDG, oh, here's your prize for coming second. The best team in the world. What? What's this seeding? Who did this seeding? Fucking someone from Loudon, Team Secret Wales. What's going on here? Like, I want to know what you think about that. These groups are weird, mate. What's going on? What the fuck is going on, homie?
I guess the rationale, right, is that a seed 2 out of LPL and LCK is lower than a seed 1 from the other regions, right?
Oh no. So we have to pretend. We have to do this every year, We have to pretend like, but Doran, don't be bigoted. Can we really know if the second best team in LCK is better than G2? Shut up. Yes. You know what? I'll normally, if I was sat with Plato and fucking, the great philosophers, I'd go, well, of course, Yamato, we can never say that. We can't know certain things that haven't happened. You know what? In this case, colloquial, I'd just go, I'm going to shut this argument down. Yes. The answer is yes. And in the rare 1 out of 100 times I'm wrong, I'll just take it on the chin. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say they're better, Yamato. Because I know what you mean. Like, the idea we have to treat these teams like they're equal is nuts, in it. Like, because the draw here, I understand it's done by draw, but there shouldn't even be a draw like that, in my opinion. You should have the pool system's fucked completely in this tournament, bro. Especially because, in this case, we're only sending the second seed of the best regions. Well, here's the obvious weird question to ask Yamato. Why are we sending their second best team if they're not even as good as the others? What are we doing? You know it, Riot. You know the LPL and LCK is better. That's why you sent the 2 teams, you fuck. So why are we pretending now, like, who can know for it? And essentially, like I said, you've almost got the worst possible draw that you can have. You've had the worst outcome of the draw.
It's just already the draw was so uninteresting because there was only 2 outcomes. I was like, oh, it's already predetermined that Gen G play JDG and BFX, because like the first match, I guess you're in a position where maybe you were hoping that you get like some matchups from an entertainment standpoint. Maybe you were hoping that LEC would play against LCS or something like this would happen. I guess in terms of just looking at it from a strictly entertainment point of view, the matchups are like close, because in the other world, I'm with you, because I do think that the top 4 will be JDG, BFX, Bilibili, Gen G, but the road for JDG, BFX just was way harder for strange reasons, right?
Yes.
But at least like this, you get to see maybe G2 Lion, they win. It's from an entertainment standpoint, I can get it. I get it to some degree.
The one upside is, as you said, look, it is still double a limb with BO5. That luckily BFX and JDG, don't worry, boys, you're going to make it anyway. That's all right. Like, in the end, it's just the order's going to be different. But I agree. Luckily, it will work itself out. Now, with that said, what about, I'll tell you an angle I want to know about. Before we talk about who will win this tournament, we're also going to talk about who might be frauds here and who might do badly. So, if someone is a bald fraud, literally bald, what could they do about that, Yamato? What could they do to not no longer be bald?
Honestly, they could wear a cap, and hide it, That's an angle. But the thing is, everybody knows. Everybody knows. And that also kind of has a strange aura to it. Some people wear toupees, I remember that episode in Seinfeld. That was like...
Thing is, low-key, that sort of was fire, even though it was a really bad toupee, because it looked so big, that it was so thick, wasn't it? Like, it looked dope. And I love the confidence he had. When he talks to that woman, like, hey, and pulls that chair, she kicks that chair out. That's one of our favourite scenes ever, Yamato. I love that shit. But true, it was embarrassing for him, certainly.
No, 100%. And it's like, in that moment, you feel sympathy for the guy because, everybody just deserves to keep their hair, And that's where hymns comes in. when your hair starts to thin, confidence can too. And that's why Hims makes it very simple to just feel like yourself again, with access to very simple and personalized care that fits your life and, of course, your hair goals. I think in terms of how you present yourself, I think that you should be able to have options and not have random, things just take their course and change how you want to be. I think everyone should be able to have access to that. And in a lot of ways, going through the loops and the hoops that you had to go through in the past in order to get the appropriate care for in those moments, it was extremely complicated and sometimes borderline embarrassing to go through that process. But now you can just go online, boom. Hims offers very convenient access to a range of prescription hair loss treatments with ingredients that work. It can include chews, it can be oral medications, serums, and sprays. I know, for example, minoxidil is something that people spray on, of course, and something that Hims offers because it's clinically proven to work and to promote hair growth. But that's something, if you apply it topically, is something that can be toxic to cats. And if you have cats, you can, of course, adjust and you can take it orally, which is something that is super cool. And there's also, of course, finasteride, I mentioned minoxidil. These are things that have just, doctor-trusted ingredients that are just shown that they can stop hair loss and then regrow hair in as little to 3 to 6 months. I have said it many times before. I take finasteride. I'm very early. I still have my hair. I'm wearing a cap, but I still have my hair. But I want to keep my hair, I always have that dream of that espresso commercial that I saw growing up of George Clooney. He's a silver fox, he's drinking the espresso, Like, oh, he has his hair, That's kind of the dream, And with Hims, I can fulfill that dream, No hidden fees, no surprise costs, just real personalized care on your schedule. So with that being said, for simple online access to personalized and affordable care for hair loss, ED, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/LFN. That's, of course, HIMS.com/LFN for your free online visit. Featured products include compounded drug products which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information. Individual results may vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride.
I just hope
there you have it.
Get the joke you made earlier where you were like, you could wear a cap and then go, and then because you're being subtle, you just let it go. You just let it go. So I'll see if you guys can figure it out. Anyway, by the way, speaking of bald frauds, I'll tell you one area that it was only a minor, what you call a storm in a teacup. It wasn't a massive drama. But one thing that was pointed out about First Stand is, apparently, the location it's held in will seat 140 people. Now, I will say, to be fair, last year's First Stand was just in like a studio in Korea or something. It wasn't massive either. I looked back at the VOD. It wasn't a massive seating arena. So it's nowhere close to what you think of like MSI or even this LCK that was in Hong Kong. Like, it's not going to be some massive stuff. What do you think of that aspect? Is that an issue for you? I know some people online were concerned because obviously you only get the 3 big international tournaments, don't you? So people want it to have like a big seating thing and have a big epic environment. And I will say, coming from Counter-Strike, there's a massive difference, I think, between seeing an awesome play and seeing an awesome play where you hear the crowd max and you hear like a massive crowd shit. I do think it adds to hype. Like, it's not just some pleb shit. It does affect how you perceive the play and how epic it is. What do you think about this seating issue?
I think the problem that Riot really faces is that it's very unpredictable of which teams are going to show up. And if you, let's say, rent out the venue and the teams that show up aren't super popular, you are in trouble financially and in terms of how it's perceived. And I do think creating kind of a want for something larger also is something that kind of helps you in terms of the promotion of the larger events further down the line, because you don't want to be in a position where the teams aren't determined at all. You have no idea who shows up. Because if we think about, let's say, the previous First Stand, like the most popular teams didn't show up. Like, so sure, Casey's very popular at the time, and you have top esports with Jackie Love, whatever. But in terms of like the biggest popularity boosters, How Life is not the one, right? So I have sympathy for that problem that Riot needs to, of course, deal with. I wish it was a big stadium. I think it's way better. And maybe with the team makeup that they have now, they could have done it. And we were making the joke before that they added 2 slots from Korea and LPL to find a way to get T1 in there, and they botched that. But now with that context, it's like they just do it in the Brazil studio because that's the studio where they play the CBLOL. Previously it was the LCK studio. I guess it's just like kind of a cost-cutting measurement because it's logistically super, super easy. And it's a tournament that lasts for 1 week. And I guess, and I hope that they will make a much bigger splash for MSI. And World Championship is the one where they spend the most amount of money on the promotion. I guess it's just a question of you are still just hosting this tournament for the second time, and maybe there are things that they are figuring out. I sound like a Riot PR person in this case, but I understand the problems of esports and trying to manage it and trying to create scale here. So maybe for the next one, with the complaints that everyone's lodging, maybe the next one's going to be bigger and they're going to set it up in a way where it's better. But I think the short turnaround time is what's tricky because LPL finished this week and they're playing first stand already, of course, next week. So it's just like 1 week and then boom, the tournament happens. It's just very slotted in the middle of everything, while Riot is at the same time dealing with the responsibility of managing the leagues. That's why like Worlds and MSI is a little bit easier because Worlds is like, oh, all the leagues are wrapped up. We can use all our resources concentrating on one thing. But after first stand, it's like 1 week and then boom, all the leagues start again. So the time slot makes it difficult to kind of unleash your resources, I can imagine.
Yeah, there's a few angles on this as well. One, I do appreciate, because as I obviously have my own experience knowing people who've been tournament organisers in games like Counter-Strike, and I know how difficult logistically it is in terms of costs to rent stadiums. Also, by the way, some stadiums, like very famous ones, obviously you can't ring it up like, hey, can I book it next week? Like you have to book years in advance or some of that shit, mate. So you have to also have it built into your plan of like, I'm going to expand out like this. So one of the problems you also have, I can tell you in Counter-Strike, there was a period in time where the game got massive, about 10 years ago, 2015, 2016, where we had these massive stadium events in like Malmo in Sweden, or Malmö as they say there, and fucking New York and places that like baller places. But then, believe it or not, they actually discovered very quickly 10 years ago, you can't just go anywhere and host the event though. Like, I'm sorry, it's not actually like traditional sports where people will just go, all the same fans will travel to that venue. Part of it is you'll have local people, and then also it depends how many events you have in the year. Some people save up for the big ones. So for example, in Counter-Strike, what we had to learn the hard way was if you have, say, 3 events in America in a year, but one of them is a major, odds are the kid who needs his dad to pay and arrange the trip probably went to the major. He's not going to be. So we had an event famously that was a failure, mate. In 2017, we had an event in Las Vegas, and you would think, wait a minute. And by the way, it was inside one of those baller casinos in Las Vegas with like a massive arena. And the worst part of it is you couldn't get a worse lock than this, Yamato. It was a 360-degree stage. So there wasn't even an angle you could hide the lack of a crowd. You had to keep showing like one really narrow zoomed in shot of like the family of like SK Gaming or something, the Brazilians like following them. And like you couldn't just use the proper arena because if you actually showed the massive one, it looked really bad, bro. Like the finals had fuck all people there watching. And sadly, what they had to learn was esports isn't like traditional sports, because the thinking there was obvious, right? If you follow MMA or boxing, the reason everyone has the event in Vegas is because it's an excuse to fly to Vegas and have a time with your boys and then go see the fight. What people learned here was there's no native people in Vegas that go, and everyone else had already gone to the major, or they're going to some other event later in the year, like New York if they're from the East Coast. So sadly, no one turned up. So I will say it's also not as easy to just go like, because Riot does seem to do that thing of like, we're going to tour the world and go to this place and this place. And it's like, well, if you do that, mate, sometimes you're never going to get a proper arena event. It's going to be really hard to arrange. Then also a thing that's different from sports in esports is if you look at this tournament, it literally runs over 1 week. It begins on Monday next week and it runs until Sunday next week. Because you've got such a compressed time frame, you said it earlier, you can't know who's going to be in the final. So the difference is, if you think about like the Champions League, Yamato, well, I don't have to know at the beginning of the Champions League that I need to buy the tickets for the final. I can wait for my team to make it there. If my team make it there after the semis, then I'm going to go online and find where I buy the fucking ticket. Well, the problem with this is like, again, if someone was a T1 fan, why would they have tickets to this tournament? Like, they didn't. They wouldn't have got them. Also, one thing I'm scared about, so I'm going to make a prediction now. Right, true, outside of Loud, we assume people who go are going to be fans of all the teams in League and Gen G. I will say, China, famously in League, has the reputation that people go for the Chinese team, and if they're not there, they don't do it. I can tell you in Counter-Strike, we had the same problem with Brazil. That when there was a major in Brazil and Furia, the best Brazilian team, was like a top 5 team, they were loving all the Furia games, bro. As soon as they got knocked out, people just didn't go. People had tickets and didn't bother going to the next match because they were like, well, I was only here to watch Furia. I'm also a bit scared of that. Like, I imagine the Loud games will be banging, but I also do worry. Like, I hope people are just not going to turn up if Loud gets knocked out because assume they're going to get knocked out in the group stage. So I know what you mean. Here's the thing. On the one hand, I have some sympathy for Riot. On the other hand, my problem is 140 is too small, Yamato. If you say the same arguments, but you've got like 2,000 people there, you can set up a 2,000-seater to look pretty good angles. You can still have, if you put the right crowd mics, it can sound like a 20,000-seater. You know what? You can have a good compromise. My problem is just 140 is too low. You know what I mean? 140 is not even, but bro, isn't the LEC studio more than that? Isn't that a few hundred at least?
I think a ballpark LEC is similar, like 200.
Okay.
It isn't much. It isn't much bigger than that. I think like 200 at maximum 300.
That's
but
why I've got to complain.
It isn't much bigger.
Because I always complain about how many LEC finals have been in that studio, and like it is different to win in that studio than in front of an arena or whatever. So I would like first stand to have more, you know, a bit more epic, especially if, by the way, we get the games for it. Like, what if the final is BLG Gen G and it's like the greatest game 5 ever, but it's like then you look around and there's like 100 people like. I need it to be epic, guys. Come on.
No, I'm with you. Like the bigger the better, and probably there's like a way better middle ground that they can find. I remember back in 2016, we were at the World Championship and we played at a theater. Pretty much, it's like a theater where they basically like, do the acting and so forth. And that was like a 1.2K, 1.5K theater, and just because of the architecture in terms of how it's designed for the audio to really like bounce off the walls and everything to just be a good experience from every angle. Already that experience was like amazing, like comparable to something that had like 12K people just because of how it was built. So there's definitely like venues that they describe that are like that can be the sweet middle zone for sure.
Also, the other thing as well is this. The reason why, like this, by the way, this might even be a topic that maybe I should ask them to do a 4 Horsemen episode with Rich Lewis and Monty and have some like, the ideal person for the guest for that one, by the way, is I would like to have a guest that was like an expert on arranging tournaments. Maybe they worked for ESL or Riot Games in the past or Blizzard or something. Because one thing I'd love to know the answer on is this, Yamato. How can we live in a world where I'm pretty sure if I call up Kometo tomorrow, not like you'd answer my call, but let's say I answer, it's not a block number. If I call Kometo tomorrow, I'm pretty sure he can arrange to have a stadium with like 20,000 KC fans in for a fucking show match. But we can't have like first stand, have like 1,000 fans. Like, what are we doing here? Like, we need some sort of, like, as far as I can tell, if we just arrange for this tournament to take place in France and we agree with Kometo, the day before the tournament begins, you can have KC play a show match against JDG. He could probably arrange for this fucking thing to have a massive stadium and have all the fans. Like, there's some sort of a disconnect there. You know what I mean? Similarly, in Counter-Strike, I can tell you, we have tournaments, sure, sometimes not in the best countries, but we have tournaments that have like 5,000 seaters that are full of fans, mate. So I feel like there's got to be in the future. Look, I'll give them a break for the first 2 times, but this can't keep happening every year. Next year it has to be a few thousand at least, or it has to be somewhere with like big stakes, you know, because I also want it to be like, I actually think the format for this, by the way, the format for this is better than all the MSIs before the double elim. This is actually a pretty decent format. So if we're going to make this a true international event, let's make it epic. Let's make it so that winning all of these matters. Because the problem is, if you win this tournament, like we first stand last year, I want to say Peanut won an international the last year of his career. He was in a fucking state studio somewhere. It didn't feel like he won MSI, did it? Like, even MSI would have been something, bro.
No, 100%. And I wonder if it's just tied to the market research, because it seems they want to tie themselves to like each region, but I'm sure they have the data by now where the majority of League of Legends fans are just located. And I think that you can definitely create a scenario where those venues are just sold out. Like, I can imagine from the LCK side, they didn't take a gamble when they made the finals in Hong Kong. They're probably very, very well aware of the fan base that they have there in terms of the LCK, in terms of the viewership metrics, and just in terms of how the market would respond. They didn't take a risk here. This was very calculated, and I'm sure that this is something that Riot can also apply. Instead of doing like the whole let's go worldwide and visit every place possible thing, 100%. I do think the painful part, I think, for Riot always is that they have to move so much damn equipment to that is so unique to them in terms of like the even the actual like League of Legends server and all of the broadcasting equipment is very intricate and tied to them. Like I've seen the process of them like breaking down a venue, and there's just cases after cases after cases of just random items that I don't know what they do, but are necessary for the broadcast to work. But I'm with you 100%. There needs to be, it needs to be roaring. But at least, the Brazil League of Legends fan are very, very loud, very, very loud. So I hope they're there for every match, which I imagine they will be. I think is going to be the case. That's my guess at least.
Being as we'll basically be doing next week's show on like the first or second day of the tournament, so it'll be early on. We'll use a lot of that time to preview all the other teams and the matchups. So I think the other thing we'll comment on now, because now that we know it's BLG and JDG, the obvious other angle is who is the winner of this tournament. So over at Polymarket, the odds at the numbers at the moment for first stand winner is, let me have a look here. Gen G is at 57%. That's by the way, bear in mind, no matches have been played. That is enormous. Like, I know everyone goes, Gen G's going to win. That's before any matches are played. To have even over 40% is nuts. Like, I'll give you an example. In Counter-Strike right now, Vitality wins every tournament. Bro, they're only at 40% for these numbers. So 57% is huge. FearX themselves are actually second. There's 27%. BLG's at 25%, just a little bit low. JDG are all the way down at 15%. Somehow, look, admittedly, it's not much volume yet. G2's also down at 15%, right? Is Gen G a massive favourite for this tournament? Did the Polymarket traders get it right?
I think so. It's like in terms of size, right? It's like we have 8 teams, right? I think that's the big one, right? We have 8 teams, so definitely it should make it easier. The fact the format's best of 5 straight away makes the format very honest. Yeah, I have to imagine a world where Gen G lose 2 best of 5s at a tournament. That just seems so impossible at this stage, especially with the level of everybody else, where everyone's had like their story of like redemption and breaking through, but the team that made it look easy was Gen G. And I think that still like the World Championship last year was just a blip in the matrix, and this is just the continuation of the Gen G storyline. I think if they don't win, that would be so damn crazy. I'd rather lean into the Billy odds beating BFX than to try to bet against Gen G. That's for sure.
Yes. And also, I'll even add in, I think we can tie what we've just said, which is, mates, bearing in mind this really isn't Worlds, and it doesn't even have a big crowd element. I feel like if you're Gen G, you're not going to have any pressure. If anything, right, the real thing that's the bomber, if you're a fan of anyone except Gen G, is that there's no T1 to even put some pressure on them. Like, if you look on paper, Gen G, every metric says they should win, and against every opponent here. And even the BO5, there's not even any room to get them. Like, in a BO3, you can get lucky. Like, it's really hard to get lucky in a BO5. Like, the odds are they don't even go in 5 games. So most of these teams just beat them in 4 and just cleanly take them out. And also, I'll just throw this out there. This core, remember, it's the exact same squad as last year. They have also been unbelievably good generally in game 5s. Like, they're not the team that gets caught out by Fearless often, mate. So I'm with you. I actually think, even though normally I would say the number's too high, you should probably, think to yourself, maybe BLG can win or FearX convince yourself. I actually agree. Even though, look, it's not going to be the craziest cash out ever. Like, the numbers make sense. Like 50. I also think this is a tournament where as soon as I knew T1's not making it, I even think, by the way, of the Chinese, I'd like to see anyone's legend play them. They're not going to be there either. I think actually the market's right. Gen G wins this event. I think the traders are correct on this one. I even think the number's quite fair. I think at the end of the event, you'll see that was right.
Okay. And even, I'll just add, like, in terms of what the market says too, it's like, in terms of Billy being so far away from BFX, I feel like this is one of those markets that will have time to adjust itself too.
Yes.
Because right now it seems jumpy in terms of where the volume is at, but we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. Maybe we check in later down the line again.
Well, especially because obviously LPL already just finished, so there's still time for people to figure out what they think of that matchup at Sarah, and who's actually the second best. Whereas before, they were probably just going off the high of like FearX beat G1, all that. Yeah, of course, that's going to make people be skewed anyway. And traditionally, even though it's normally a whack angle, it is true that LCK outperforms the LPL. It's just I don't know in this case, because as we pointed out with FairX, they've got a lot of unexperienced players, though. I've never been in a massive match like that, and certainly haven't played potential Hall of Famers on the other side of the BO5. So I do think FairX actually gets like, put it this way, there's an angle I think maybe people have been unfair with. Bro, I actually, I have a similar level of expectation at this tournament for FairX. In relation to the league they come from, as I did with KC last year. KC in the beginning of the group stage looked like they were going to bomb it. And like, oh my God, but they're fucking bunch of rookies, mate, and people who've never been to that level of competition, and a squad that never played together. If FairX actually isn't one of those, I don't actually treat them like a true number 2 seed from LCK Yamato. If some of these players trip up and fuck up the tournament, I don't blame them. Like, I certainly hope Diablo plays great, but even to him, by the way, what experience does he have at massive international tournaments? Like, I think people are going to treat them like they're T1, but they don't have the same expectation. On paper, they could be the second best team here. Maybe they can even win it, but you also have to shade in that, like, some of them could just turn up and shit their pants. That's totally plausible. I don't think that's even unfair to suggest.
I think it would have been cool. I don't know, because it's just a crazy idea, but I'm kind of sad that in terms of how the group layout is, that we won't get a JDG versus BFX.
Yes,
because I think that would have been because that would have been the matchup that really tells us something new, right? Because that's like Billy facing Genji in a final and Genji winning. Like, that's not something surprising. But JDG BFX, like, I would be for BFX, but only with a slight edge. Like, I think that's a series, a best of 5 that can be very, very close, and that's like a moment because Genji is such a damn outlier. So it's like an actual moment where we get to measure the league somehow, because you have 2 second seeds, and that would be like an apt comparison, because Genji is just freaky roster where we talk about how like the LCK beats the LPL, but usually it's like one team out of the LCK that beats everyone in the LPL. Similar to last year at World, it's like, oh, they kicked out AL, they kicked out IG, and apparently these 2 teams were the best ones out of the LPL, and they didn't get a chance to play anybody else. Well, AL did, and they beat Genji in a BO1. So it's always that one team, that one freak outlier from LCK that just gets the job done for everybody else.
With that said, if you're an LPL hater, your dream could happen. If BFX beats BLG and JDG, then actually us LPL fans have to just fuck off for a while, don't we? Like, we can't ever talk shit anymore. Like, what? That'll be nearly, as we say, if Claire and Raptor and Tellen are just donking on fucking peak BLG, yeah, that's a rough start, mate. That's going to be hard to talk. Going to be hard to live that one down, I can't lie. But I also don't put that much pressure on it. It's fair enough. All right, what about this then? Let's talk. There was technically some other regional play, Yamato, but it was the Americas region, wasn't it? Because it was that America's Cup. Right, bruh, we're going to start here. Fucking hell, bro. We've given so much praise on this show to Dom and to Cloud9, mate. This last 3 weeks, it's been suffering, bro. I feel like this is like, all right, I'll give you an analogy. Have you ever seen the movie Vanilla Sky, the one with Tom Cruise, where he gets injured? Have you ever seen this film? Mm-hmm. Basically, and without spoiling the film, there's a premise where, like, it's sort of like, could he be in a simulation? And it's the idea that if you were in a simulation, all the bad things happening to you might just be because it's like a bad dream. In a bad dream, your mind gets like paranoid and things get worse and worse and worse, and you're trying to run away from someone, but you can't get away, and then everything just creeps. That's what it feels like for Dom, mate. This last 3 weeks has been Nightmare Simulator. Like, it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And in the America's Cup, even if you'd won this tournament, everyone would have been like, Corp, it's a consolation. Who cares? There's no good to. Bro, this has been bad. Give me some initial thoughts. Where are we even at on this? This is fucking bad for C9, bro.
It was a nightmare. First we underlined this by saying fair play to Furia for some reason. I like, whenever I see them play, whether it was MSI or now, I'm like surprised. Why are they not winning every CBLOL? Like,
they have that weird thing, don't they, where they seem better against international tournaments than against whoever the best Brazilian team. It doesn't even make sense, does it? I know.
Like obviously I don't. Like, I don't watch the CBLOL like in terms of their matches, but then when I see the other teams coming out of CBLOL, they don't come anywhere close to what Furia is offering when they play against international competition. So it's always like mind-boggling to the point where I'm like, I kind of want to like take a look and understand why they are just not winning everything, because on an individual level, this team looks very, very good. With that being said, though, C9 the way they played in this one. Like there were some drafts that just looked so damn unlosable. They lost against Annie, Yasuo, Kesante, Malphite. Like that is, if they played the Fury, they took their own spin on things. They played like Yasuo bot, Senna Sion bot. They were sticking true to what works to them. But on paper, those are drafts that C9 should have been winning. And Dom even went so far to try to keep Blabber, sane in the game, that he gave him a Sejuani in a game 3 just to make it as streamlined as possible. And in that game, they are 10-1 in kills and they are 6,000 gold ahead, and they still somehow can't win when Furious mid laner is just making it a mission to die to everything that just touches him. So with that being said, C9, I didn't think there was a way for it to be more disappointing than the actual final. Kind of brings me back to that EWC tournament that they played when we heard all of the rumors about how well they did in scrims during, of course, MSI, and then they flew out the EWC, and then they got smoked by Furia. They lost to Furia there. Yes. So Furia is just their worst nightmare. The record that Furia holds against Cloud9 is goddamn ridiculous. And it just seems like C9 is one of the softest teams I've ever seen, that any form of controversy that they face in the game just breaks them. There is no champion makeup here. There's no champion DNA. And it really puts Blabber's career into question, because the finals that he did win was always the easy ones, where he had someone like Perks to pull him over the finish line, or when they just dominated so hard that it just never became even a question through the sheer force of anybody else. But Blabber has been now on rosters that were really good in spring and then just completely destroyed in summer. They went from I remember that COVID year with Niski, MVP performance, Blabber, spring, easy peasy, and then summer, don't make the World Championship. Last year, don't make the World Championship. The year before that, don't make the World Championship. Losing to contracts in a final, it's like, from the position we're at, it's like impressive. God bless RNG, they figured out a way to play. But from all the data that we saw leading up to that moment, you have to pay attention to the one detail that has been the jungle for the team this entire time, because I do think that if you make a montage for how Blabber's final game looks when they actually lose a finals, I am so certain that it looks so damn ugly. And it's one of those things where from Dom's side, it's like he knew that this was an issue, but you can't really address it until you face it again. Absolutely. Because you're doing well, you're winning the matches, you're doing all you can highlight it, you can make sure that in practice you work good. I think there's a world where Lion still beats them even if C9 play at their best. I think that would have been fine. But anyone with the eye test knew that C9 in that final just played worse than ever. And then this moment here, it just looked like the C9 players had no shame in the way they played. And I think that part is the most disappointing part, because I don't know what the hell this was. It's like, if you lose the finals the way you did, you should have, with the utmost intensity, the will to beat the shit out of this tournament. That's the least you can do to maintain some level of pride and get us excited for the potential rematch of Lion versus C9 in the next split. But now with this, it's like, I don't see a world where Lion just doesn't win it again, because that's a team that is going to continuously improve. They get the international experience now at the good level. And I just am, even though we had a one-team region type thing going on for the LCS, it's going to continue, but in a very different manner. And it's disappointing, because we're finally finding more reasons to actually watch the LCS. But now this kind of puts us back on square one.
Yeah, there's a few things on that. First of all, on the Blabber thing, I actually agree. It just shows how actually, in general, LCS, maybe it's because they're not his main fans now, they don't actually go as hard on people like Blabber. Like, bro, how has Blabber not just got the craziest year, the choker fucking narrative ever around him? Like, I agree with you. When you look back through history, the joke is, he's won a bunch of domestic championships, but even then he's underdelivered. Like, this guy should be on fucking 10 LCS titles or something by now. Like, he's been in arguably a favorite or the favorite a billion times in a row. Also, you add in, as you say, not only did he win the easy ones, but he himself, he doesn't. Here's the thing about this guy. I'll give him one thing, which is at least when he loses, he doesn't just play like a pussy and not do anything. Sadly, though, that does mean you can in your brain immediately think of iconic fails that he's done in these big matches. matches, though. Like, he always goes for some crazy reach that just doesn't get pulled off, and then looks like an idiot and loses the game. I know what you mean. Everyone else has been swapped out. It can't be Reapered or Mithy. They're gone. It can't be Jojo. Everyone's fucking gone, mate. Like, there's only Sven who was, even then, was fucking support at times in your team anyway. So it can't be him. Like, if you've tried all these players, it's just you, Blabber. There's something fundamentally wrong. And I'm with you. Even if as an outsider, Dom might know that, you can't really know what you're working with until you've been there in the game. Because in this case, by the way, I actually think that's one of the hardest things to coach Yamato, is the idea of choking. Because remember, he's not doing it except in the finals. Like, in all the other matches, it's going great. You're seeing what happened in scrims. He's going in the official matches. He's beating the teams in there. You're thinking to yourself, everything's going fine so far. It's only going to be when you've been through this a couple of times, which now you have, that you can even address anything. Like, what else is there to talk about? You weren't there before, so you can't know what was going on in the dressing room setup, in the leadership, in the comms. You didn't even watch the VOD review. That, if anything, actually, in that sense, Dom's work begins now, mate. I want to see what he does next split, if he can help Blabber. Because also, similarly to criticising now, if somehow Blabber fixes this, I'll give Dom some of the credit, and I'll give Blabber credit too, and we'll see the development together. By the way, on the Dom thing, I have a quick question for you. Because one thing as an outsider to League of Legends, which I'm not really anymore, the joke is now I've been here like 4 times longer than most people who think they're insiders, but I'll always consider League not my home game. My games are FPS games and tac shooters, and I've even probably put more hours overall into games like StarCraft and stuff than this game. But as someone who's an outsider to League, one thing I always found really confusing is the way people decide if the draft was good after they've seen the game, which is like, what? That's not the way it works. You have to call the draft after the draft. And then if it ends up they lose the game, like LS, you have to be honest and be like, hey, they lost with a better draft, you know. Like, one thing I thought sucked was some of the narratives around this tournament, by the way, where every time C9 lost, people were like, Dom's just drafted like shit again. And I was like, up until the final of LCS, he was doing a really good job drafting, in my opinion. Like, he actually has lived up to a lot of things he used to tell me on his talk shows he would do. Like, you give people their picks, you get them away from the picks they're not strong, you cynically draft against the strengths of the opponent. He was doing a good... I even think in this tournament he did a good job drafting. You can't just blame the fact they lost the game on the draft. Like, I'm with you, mate. If anything, I think Fury had some dog shit drafts. Also, as you said, mate, that fucking mid laner, Dutch or whatever, he was trying his fucking hard. If he was an LPL player, he'd be getting investigated right now. This motherfucker was outrageous. Like, he must be the biggest fucking fan of Cloud9 of all time. Like, what the fuck was that? So I think that was a whack angle. Like, was that even a factor for you, the idea, Dom? Did he do any dodgy drafts to you?
No, not at all. I think that in most of the games they came out ahead, and I understand the angle of the game 3 of trying to put Blabber on something else that he could just get into the early game with to just lower the level of responsibility. Sometimes you take those decisions, like when you notice that you have weaknesses in your game when you're playing those matches. Sometimes you're going to shore up that weakness. Sometimes you notice that the enemy team is kind of struggling with some aspect of the game, and through the draft you kind of lean into something. I can give a more concrete example. We were playing against Los Ratones with Ruddy Sack guys. So basically this was like the full rookie roster, and in 2 games we just didn't get anything out of the early game. So we just didn't play the game. We had really rough early games. Then coming into game 3, the adaptation I made was we picked like Pyke, picked I think Pantheon in the jungle, just so the early game would actually just work in our favor, just to get away from that hole that we'd always be in. And those are the dynamics that you kind of have to measure sometimes, depending on where the series is kind of heading. Because sometimes there's been moments where I'm in the middle of the series and I'm like, all right, whoever is just picking the better scaling, no one's finding like any aggression early game. We need to like kind of steer clear from that. We need to lean into this direction. And those are dynamics that happen real time in a draft. And I think for Dom, there was nothing really, like even the champions that they have performed on in the split didn't really work out. Whether it was like the APA's Talia or the Kokinami or the Nico that Vulcan played. In terms of what they have found success on and the context of how good those champions are against the enemy team, I think Dom did a really, really good job. I think there was like one moment where maybe like one champion that would have picked different, but that's the case with like any team. That's just like difference of opinion. I think Dom tried his absolute best, and I do think that in the end, individually, the players just played too poorly. They were individually outmatched, plain and simple. Like the cure to this is not different drafts. The cure to this is like go home and play the shit out of solo queue. You need to apply the Chinese method where you grind your way out of this problem. Because right now the individual level is just not good enough. Like the only 2 players that maybe are there right now is like Thanatos and Vulcan. But for the other 3 on an individual level, it's it's quite pathetic. It's a harsh wording, but that's the case.
Also, it wasn't like Blabber did it on his own. I actually think the other thing that showed him up here, bro, was the fucking Furia Jungler. This tattoo, I made the joke before about like not going to get that famous sock. Bro, he actually, that's true. Like, this guy was actually legit. Like, I've looked at, he's 19 years old. Mate, this guy has crazy balls. Listen to this quote. Supposedly, for that Zahan pick, this is the quote. He goes, I was going to take a piss and got the feeling of picking Zahan. I didn't know if it was ego or if it made sense. So I discussed with my coach and we picked it. This guy, mate, I'm in. God damn it, I'm in. Like, this guy's a fucking baller. This is sick.
No, it's just he was the guy who was like emoting and standing up, and it's a very common thing in Brazil esports, of course. Like I lost against Brazil once, and it hits you in your ego in a very different way. It hits you hard, and dealing with that as well, getting taunted on stage and the bravado, that's also like very new. Like, we mentioned that C9 is soft, and you know, if there's any team that is tough, it's like the Brazilian teams. They are tough, you know. They take enjoyment in the trash talk and in the passion and in the fiery nature of it all. It's like APA trash talking, bro. That's like a fucking completely different universe. Like there's levels to this shit, and that's also one of those things that you need to deal with. And maybe C9 just couldn't. Like in those games against Furia, they just like literally the first game that they played against them, they lost in 25 minutes. Unbelievable. And then the second game they played, they lose against Kesante and Malphite. Like, that's like if someone is in silver and is playing, you know, like just a clash tournament. You know, that's the dream draft. They're like, we're gonna draft a wombo combo. You know, these AOE abilities together, and they just outplayed them every step of the way. Like, I think there's nothing else to add. It's just Tattoo. Toots had like a great Akali game. So you're playing Akali into a composition that's so much CC, lane against Ryze, and solo killing a Ryze. That should be illegal. That should just be plain and simple illegal. Some of those moments, even the way they threw the final game that C9 played in this tournament, is just like good luck, C9. I don't know how you dig yourself out of this hole. I say it many times. It's like getting better in North America and North American solo queue is a challenge in itself. But now you got to bite down and get it done, you know? And then I know the C9 don't have super much money to spend. You know, that boot camp would have been nice, you know? That was the reward now that Furia gets, the boot camp at MSI paid for. But I imagine and hope at least that MSI, that they at least qualify to it. Because if they don't, what the hell?
By the way, on that topic, I'll just quickly bring. I saw people memeing on that on Twitter. Remember, guys, this isn't like a massive Riot tournament. Like, if you're Furia, especially, that's fucking baller to win that boot camp. Like, that could actually level your team up. And like, where is MSI this year? Where is it? Is it in Korea? Yeah, it's in Korea, bro. That's a Korean boot camp right there. If you're Furia players, that's a fucking mad. That could actually help you come like Worlds, for example. Like, you know, that could be what levels you up this year and gives you another level. Because another thing, by the way, about the tattoo guy that now has been revealed is this guy was actually one of the people, believe it or not, FlyQuest was considering this offseason. Like, it was like, he was like third on the list, apparently. So I can see why. I can see why this is the person that was scouting. Also, as I say, he's 19 years old, mate. Looks like he's like a fucking stud. This guy's going to be a player for a few years. All right, I've got a question. Go on.
Just a final angle, because you mentioned like quotes, like in the interview that he had right after the match. He was like,
what I want to bring up. Yes.
Oh,
this is the topic. You want to do the slot combo, yeah?
Drop it.
Yes.
Drop it.
I actually think, I'm not even just going to do this as he did it in an interview. Bro, I think it's a legitimate conversation. So the question becomes, think about last year when it was LTA and we combined LCS with CBLOL and LLA or whatever. The question becomes, and I'm not just doing this as a European memeing on the NA, is not a major region, but the question is why, essentially, the tattoo quote goes, I want to understand why these guys, he means NA, get 3 spots for Worlds, he means here, obviously, and I only have 1. I just want to understand that. So this was a conversation people had on Twitter of, we're not even memeing, is it actually time that you get 2 LCS spots and 2 CBLOL spots? Like, because I'm with you, Yamato. If I think, for example, of that, like that MSI playing last year, I mean, that was fucking crazy. They were giving G2 work in that one too. Like, then I also think of some of the past tournaments. Remember, LTA, we all laughed it's going to be 3 LCS teams. It wasn't. At the end, it was like VKS and fucking FlyQuest in the final, wasn't it? So, like, I have to say, like, it's a legitimate conversation to have, and I'm not just doing it on the European, like, lol, let's take LCS. Like, at this point in time, after seeing these matches, maybe it would be reasonable even to just have two. Remember, I'm not saying you get one LCS spot. You still have two slots, mate. Like, if I look at the third best team in LCS right now, it's a bit meh, isn't it? It's like fucking, it's some Sentinel shit. That's not someone good. Like, I don't know. What do you think? Because I'm with you, especially right now. Look, there's a biased reason, which is, at the moment, for whatever reason, Furia doesn't win CBLOL. But I tell you what, I want to see Furia in national competition. So, for purely biased reasons, I'm with you, Tattoo. Let's get that second fucking CBLOL spot. What do you think?
No, I thought it was based, and the answer to that question is like, I know people are gonna say, well, in the past, it's like the historical whatever, you know, but you know, the times change and times change fast, and I think now there's an elephant in the room for the LCS. It's like they did the name change, seemed to be somewhat helpful. They had an interesting final, right? All that jazz, but you know, in terms of the trajectory of the LCS, it's like you have arguably the two, honestly, not even arguably, they are the two best native players to your region are playing over in the LEC. And now it's like we are talking down on Blabber because of his performances, and rightfully so, but this is one of your top guys.
Absolutely.
The moment Inspired finds a home in the LEC, like your father is leaving. Your father's leaving the home. You know, the person who is dominating your region pieces out, and who is going to carry the torch? It's like the current players that are holding green cards and have been around the block for such a long time. It's like when Code JJ retires, when Impact retires, when Inspired leaves, and all your next talent feel there's an incentive to play in the ARLs and to try to make it to the LEC. What is going to happen to your region? Yes. Because in behind that question is like, why do these guys have that? There's a lot to uncover, and yes. I don't know how they're going to recover. We mentioned it, you know, do it an open league where, you know, anyone can make a team with any players they want, have a Chinese team, a Korean team, let it be funded by the dirtiest money on earth, and just make it into like a UFC type league where it's all about the money and nobody cares. Maybe that's the future, but I don't know how, like in 3 years, how is LCS going to even look like? They're still going to have 3 slots when Inspired leaves and these guys leave? It's going to be a mess.
Because what people are missing about this conversation, Yamato, is this is also why, you know, I said about the Faker wins worlds, ruins all the Jovian night, how good are they conversations? Similarly, all slot discussions are ruined because since fans do it from like a tribalistic, like we're NA and you're EU, all people are really arguing is how did the number one seed do? They're not really talking about the region. They're just going, hey, since FlyQuest or NRG made playoffs, we must be better. No, the question with slots is how's your third or fourth team doing? That's what we need to know. So in this particular case, like I just said, if Sentinels is your third best team, mate, I think Furia, as you already see, are better than them. I even think whoever helps CBLOLers might be better than them. Because the real problem, you nailed it there, but you weren't as explicit. The reason in the past, I would actually, if we'd have had the same convo even 2 years ago, I would have dismissed it out of hand as a discussion. Because what I would say is this, you're just too caught up in the moment of these specific teams in this tournament. Like, if you look historically, NA is a region that has a lot of money, they have a lot of investment, they can scout players, they can attract top European talent. They'll always be better than CBLOL. CBLOL can get like the odd Korean that can't get into a good region. They can get like a player from Europe like Trimby who just has nowhere to go. They're not getting top talent. The difference right now is this, like actually CBLOL is comparable to LCS. We've just seen it in the playoff the last few years. Like, and LCS does not have that big money pipeline anymore. Like Inspired supposedly the best paid players on 500k. 500k was like NACL player money back in the day. Like that was nothing. So actually there's no real reason as of today to imagine, you said it best, why would LCS get better than it is right now in terms of talent? If anything, as you said, they're going to be in a lot of trouble if Inspired ever remembers he's fucking from Europe, and if Core JJ ever retires. Like, as soon as that happens, this region, the joke is, forget taking a slot and giving a CBLOL. People will really do the nightmare discussion for NA fans, which is, are you even a major region anymore? Like, that discussion's real close on the horizon, guy. And it's only been that FlyQuest and NRG run of the last few years that sort of allowed you to put that off for a little while. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to make a prediction now. I doubt that ever happens again. Like, as of right now, we just discussed it. It was supposed to be a one-team region for C9. If you sent this C9 team to Worlds tomorrow, they're not making fucking top 8. I'd say that right now. Like, there's plenty of teams who get these guys. They need the miracle draw to get that. And even then, I don't know if they'd make it. So I'm not even saying it to be a hater. I just think if you look at where League is right now, in the same way as LCS, LMS always had one really good team, but we took their whole region against them and all their. I think we have to eventually one day take away LCS major region stays. By the way, I'm an elitist, Yamato. I don't say this as a European fan. I'm also in favour of the fact maybe Europe shouldn't have a third seed. Like, if you asked me tomorrow, mate, I'd take that third seed to give it to LCK or LPL or something, you know, like, I just think it would make a better tournament. Listen, I'll still give 1 or 2 slots. You can still be G2 or someone. But actually, if you're going to be like, in this analogy, like Fnatic was last year, who gives a fuck, mate? I don't want to watch you play. I'd rather be watching D+ or someone who's actually could do something at the tournament, not you, fucking just because you're third in your region.
It gets even worse when we realize IG died for them, you know? IG died for one of those
Don't even remind me of that, my lord. That's what's gross, Yamato. I have to live in a world where some bomb is going to look on Gamepedia like, rookie, it didn't even make Worlds. But fucking Super was that. Shut the fuck up. Shut your fucking mouth. How dare you even say that? How dare you, sir? Or Team Secret Wales or something. Get the fuck out of my face. Listen, the only thing I care about Team Secret Wales is when Vestion, who came on this show, makes a tweet about them, because I don't know anything about them, I also click retweet. That's all I know or care about Team Secret Wales, right until they do something. Like upset someone, win a match, you fuck. When you win a match, then I'll care. Because I'm with you. This isn't just about LCS, bro. The West in general, we're all just living off some shit from the past. Like, I'll just remind people again, because it really radicalizes you. That G2 run was in 2019. Boys, that's a million years ago now. That's so long ago, it's crazy. We can't just keep living off that, can we? Like, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, one day League, in my opinion, and this will make it a better game. So I'll tell everyone who's a fan of high-level League a little bit of sort of positivity in an otherwise dark world where things are getting worse in League. The one good thing, bro, in a few years of if the West dies off a little bit and the money isn't there, but you've still got amazing Koreans in LPL, is one day if you do what we're talking about, you might have like a worse region, like a worse international scene of League of Legends, but you could have better world championships, bro. If you really had like 4 or 5 LCK and LPL scenes, you'd have an unbelievable world championship. Imagine the format, how it would play out with all those teams. It'd be mega. But you could argue the level of play might not be as good because you won't have all the like European style and the NA stuff, but you'll have a better competition. And I'm sorry it has to go that way. Like, remember, we started in League way back in the day. The joke was it used to be Korea and China had to expand the regions out. Then we had equal for everyone. By the way, that's one day in history going to look so antiquated. The idea that we were giving, like, Korea and NA 3 slots each. Like, there you go. Again, like that discussion of seeding earlier. But who can know who is better? Like, shut the fuck. How dare you even... At this point, that question goes from being like a fun philosophical question. Like, it's just insulting at this point in time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we need to run that experiment. We've run it like 15 times in a row, haven't we, guys? Like, Korea's just a lot better. They just are. I'm sorry. What do you want?
Honestly, it's like, when I think back, I feel like the Rift Rivals was special, man. When we got to see LPL versus LCK. Yes. Even the ASI tournament that we had, bro. It just give me more matches between them.
I still feel like the worst thing about that is the lesson people took from Rift Rivals is that you can't have these regional matchups. No, it's that the format sucked. The format was just stupid. Remember, it was either you're all on one team, like the Ryder Cup or something in golf, and you're all like for Team Europe, which, by the way, was a terrible idea because that doesn't work because people in esports are haters and they want their team, they want their like national teammates to lose. They're not fighting for them to win, like for national pride or whatever. Because remember, another part that didn't work about that was what the fuck is EU? That's not a country, bro. It's like weird superstate, isn't it? No one's like EU, like we're not doing that like Americans are we? So one, that didn't work. And then secondly, I'm with you. If you'd have ever done that format properly, like just essentially, if they forget the whole, like, if it had just been called IEM whatever, and it was in Asia, and it was just LPL and LCK, it'd be a banger. I used to love watching those tournaments back in the day. It was sick, mate. Because I'm with you. That's the obvious fourth tournament that needs to be added, is you need to have a tournament that's NA versus EU and LPL versus LCK. It feels like the most obvious land to make, doesn't it?
I just need more of it, you know. And I'm like what I mentioned earlier, you know, in regards to First Stand, that we live in a world where we might not get JDG and BFX. Like the weird part that appears, right? If we assume Bilibili and Gen.G win their group, they're all both first seed. And I wonder if there's I don't know because I didn't read the rules, but then we just get a rematch of BFX versus Gen.G and JDG versus Bilibili. Like, I hope there's a rule in place that the regions can play against each other. I wouldn't mind it, even though competitively it's not really sound. I do think that would be nice. I just want to see.
It's going to be a
just not
rematch. It's going to be a rematch, bro.
Yeah, it's going to be a rematch.
Again. It just is.
Fuck.
You just know it is.
It's cooked. We don't get JDG versus BFX. It's just done. It's not going to happen.
Well, here's the thing. I don't like the sound of that, but I do like the sound of these banger Raycon earbuds. This message is obviously sponsored by Raycon. So if you don't know, Raycon have now got their essential open earbuds. So unlike the classic ones, one of the great things about this one is it automatically you can hear more things around you because it doesn't go right inside your ear. It sits just on the edge of your ear. And it's actually designed ergonomically, really intelligently, so that no matter what shape, size, head and ears you have, it'll fit and it stays in place. Because I have to say, one of the most annoying things about any kind of like sound technology is if you do things like it's slightly off or you're right in the middle of doing the weights and then as you push up it comes slightly out or it's too far in, or those all do me. By the way, the most underrated one with earbuds is actually that one, is when they go too far in and then it's like now it's too much suction appeal and it's like, and then also the sound's a bit different. So they've solved all of that because it's not inside your ear in that sense, guys, but it still delivers the sound. Also, it's got all those other great features you enjoy, like they have the 30-day guarantee, so you know you're going to enjoy them, otherwise you have a chance to send them back. They have the 36 hours of battery life where you have 8 hours of playtime alone, which is, by the way, most long-haul flights. And then as long as you have the case and you charge that, you have basically a day's worth of charge in that too, because on total it's going to be 36 hours of battery. So the essential open earbuds are perfect for refreshing your routine this spring. Go to buyraycon.com/LFN open, all one word, to get 20% off. Thanks to Raycon for sponsoring. That's go to buyraycon.com/LFN open to get 20% off their wonderful open earbuds. Okay, one thing we can talk about now is this, Yamato. There's actually a kind of fun, weird drama angle that I never thought I would be able to talk with you about. Because actually, one, unless we're going to go really ham, I knew there was no point going too deep on the Los Ratones thing because it'll just cause problems and people having a heartache and, oh my God, how can you even talk about it with Darren? He's evil. Whatever, all the pearl clutching and all the, and suddenly every Los Ratones fan, mate, turns into like some church mom from fucking 1910, like, oh my God, this jazz music that they're playing in the clubs. Like, but anyway, we'll ignore that. Bro, I get to ask you about Los Ratones by laundering it through the fact it's not Los Ratones. There's a team now called Witchcraft, and it's not even Cadril, and there's no Bouse. Eve's gone even, so we can spare your boy the roasting he would have received from me if you'd have tried to argue with it. It's okay. Now Whippo's back. Mate, I've got a whole fucking soundboard set up and shit to say about Whippo. Whippo's back. And do you know what, Yamato? This is where you can both comment on them and give me some inside info, because a lot of people have gone absolutely fucking apeshit about this drama, Yamato, where basically this is where I really wonder how many people actually followed Los Ratones. And you'll see what I'm saying when I explain this, right? Los Ratones, the whole time, Yamato, even before you were coaching them, have been streaming their scrims and been streaming VOD reviews like this. And if no one ever saw them, a lot of them were like this. Yeah, some of them weren't like hours long because there was usually an adult in the room who eventually would be like, look, we've got to move on, guys, or like, shut up, or, you know. But in this case, there's been a drama where it was like Crowny versus Velia, Crowny and Nemesis versus Velia, Nemesis and Cadril watching Crowny versus them. Like we've had every possible variation of like streaming, view, Inception level shit, you know. Whippo's obviously in the room helping start shit too, because there's one thing that's mad about this project too. We've added another guy with a massive mouth who likes to argue to this powder keg of a squad already. And so people are going really mad on this one. It's actually one of the like strongest responses I've seen, because it's bringing up topics like people think like, is Crowny like abusive? Like, is this a bad scrim environment? Like, obviously, as I'm alluding to, a lot of people actually, I'm shocked to find out, don't seem to know that Los Ratones did this anyway. They seem to think Los Ratones was like all friends, and it's only this squad that's having all the arguments. So as someone who both has been outside and inside Los Ratones and knows some of these people, what are your initial thoughts when you heard about this? And I'm sure you saw the clips. Well, I want to see what your response is. What did you think?
So obviously there was the one day that I wasn't there. Like we decided to put this team together like a week ago. So I just had like obligations. Yeah. I was playing like a Riftbound tournament. I wasn't there. I figured, you know, like, okay, it might not be like the best. I know how the guys are, you know, when they review, they get stuck on details that don't really matter. and they are not like the strongest communicator. And on top of that, they punish each other for not being like strong communicators. It's like, oh, you said this earlier. Why did you say this?
Right.
When, like they punish each other
They
for
do
it.
the lawyer shit where it's like they catch you on a word and they keep bringing it up. I know what you mean. Right, okay.
And obviously I didn't think it would be that extreme, because it's like I'm out playing my tournament, and they knew I'd be gone on this day. And I just get messages from a lot of people. It's like, yo, you need to address this. You need to solve this. Like, I get like so many messages from people, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And my approach was simple. It's like anything that they did on their own streams after the fact, it's like I'm not going to police them or run after them for that. I did say plain and simple to them that the day after, before the scrim started, because I had the LPL finals, I said, it's like, I don't mind that we reviewed and all that jazz, but I'm fucking pissed that they went to the point where we started to badmouth each other off, like outside of the room, like with each other. If you engage with each other and you pour that out on each other, in front of each other, I don't mind that. But then it's like going in other directions and speaking ill of your teammates. This I really didn't like. But everyone like apologized for that part, so that's like out of their way. In terms of what the moment was, it's it was funny, because on the day I was co-streaming the LCS America's Cup, and then I have just these viewers that are coming in all the time. It's like, oh, Velia is reviewing with Natinat. I'm like, okay, like I don't care. It's like I'm gonna go there and impose. Like if they want to call me, I'll join. That's what I always said. If they want to call me and bring me in, I'll do that. I'm not gonna go into that conversation without being explicitly invited to it, because I know that if I invite myself, I'll not be able to control it the way I want to control it. And then eventually there was like this whole round table. It's like they were discussing this review point with Doublelift, Natinat, it was Kirei, it was Pobelter, and then
finally, always getting on the content. I know it's uniqueness on it. I know.
and then finally, then they called me. I came into the call. The thing is, it's like what you do as a coach is that you basically you understand the patterns, the speech patterns, how people act and their energy, and like you're really if you're a good coach, you're tapped into that. So it's like I can translate very easily what Velia says, even though he's not a strong communicator, which is perfectly fine. And Crown is the same way. It's like I can translate what he means, even though his words may be not like the most accurate. And the truth is, with Velia and Crowny, these are two guys that are at each other's throat all the time. This is just like they haven't managed
the role they even play, bro. The jungler and the ADC always hate each other. The jungler thinks the ADC thinks the jungler should be bought every fucking level 3, and every jungler's like, give me a fucking break, I'm trying to play the map. Like, that's the most classic hate.
It's a very common trope, yeah. It's a very common thing, yeah. It's very, very common. And it's like, I told them many times, when we are in LR, I was like, okay, guys, it's like between one another, you guys have good points, but when you speak to me, but you need to tell me so I can communicate to the other and let me manage it. Because when you speak to one another, it becomes an ego battle very, very quickly. Very, very quickly it becomes an ego battle. And in teams, I think it's very rare that you have a situation where everyone can take feedback from everybody. It's very rare. Usually it's like you're in a team and you as a player, maybe you can have positive impact on 2 of your teammates. And then there's a relationship with a different player, and then you like connected together, right? And that's how it works. It's like G2 2019, a big part of why it worked was that was a very rare case where it seemed like everyone could take feedback from one another, and Perks was the driving force behind making sure those conversations took place, which made them as good as they are. That's why it's such a rarity. In most teams, you have a couple of players that review with one another, and that's where you pour your energy into. It's like you pour energy into the plays that you can impact. Because so far, Bwipo with Velia, they're working together. Bwipo has jungle experience, and that seems to be progressing things. But when Crown is pouring in energy into Velia, it's not really working, and it's just kind of making him regress in his own play, because it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort to review things and to put yourself on the line. But when I was watching it, I realized it was such a nothing burger, because players often get stuck in details that are not going to be important for the next game, when in reality, you want to conceptualize things in a way where it's applicable to the next one. And often what it should go down to is if a player on his own role says, if I play Caitlyn, I manage the wave like this, I can recreate this situation, that usually should be it on that conversation.
Yes.
And the concepts that tie you together, it's like, oh, I can be here on this timer and we can recreate this. And the next game we can do this. That's the only thing that is important. But often what happens is like, well, if you clicked here, you could have done this. And if you won the lane here, it could have been this. And it's just a bunch of details where you can see the argument for both sides. There was this moment where Bippo and Carney were reviewing. It was like, oh, you could have pushed here. It's like, no, I don't think I could have pushed here. It's like, yeah, but you should push here and then base. But I don't think I can push on time. I think this could have been bad for lane. So they're just disagreeing if they can push a wave on time or not. When in reality, both agree if they can push, it's a good decision. And if they can't, it's a bad decision. Which is the only theoretical idea that is important because it's applicable to the next game. And just because I wasn't there, it went haywire. And suddenly it became also like very personal. It's like, oh, you don't know anything about the game. You don't know anything about that. And luckily, it's like the moment when it all passed and like I went into the call with them and I spoke with Veli and Crowny. I acted as the translator for both of them. I called them out for the bullshit that they did that and didn't like. And they were on the same page about the conclusion. It's like, it's about filtering through the good parts. Because what Velia was trying to achieve is that he wants to know ahead of time what the lane condition is so he can actually play accordingly. And I think that's a fair point. And Crowley said that I'm not in a losing position. This is a good position for me, but I just can't move first here. And it was just, they all agree, but the nuance of how they spoke is what made them angry with one another. And this is very common. It's like people reacted very, very heavily to this. And obviously I should have been there, but I couldn't be. And I think I'm happy that it kind of played out in a way because I got to showcase what coaching in a lot of cases is in league. I imagine it's the case in other aspects too, when you're playing, like you have like very, very high performers that have a high ego because that's the only way for you to actually be able to play good in most cases. Very rare that you have a very humble person be like the best in his position too. Like it's very, very rare. Like that's like knowing how to communicate and get the most out of your teammates. There's many different ways to do that. There's people that can like be very angry at their teammates and get more out of their teammates. I guess the easiest example that people go to always is like Michael Jordan. It's like some people were just very exhausted by how he pushed you, but some people like reacted really well under that. And it depends on what kind of a group you are and how you do it, of course. Yes. But in terms of how the drama and the aftermath is always fun because it seems like people are a little bit starved now in preparation for first stand. Everyone wanted to come in and psychoanalyze the situation and say what is toxic and what is not. I do agree that in terms of going through the motion and having an environment as a team where people can express themselves honestly, that can come with emotion. And you can do things a better way, but it's better to work backwards, having it out in the open and then getting everything out of your system, because otherwise you kind of build resentment and hold it back. Because you have to, it's kind of like committing to a play. It's like you have to commit through it and just make sure that your ideas are in the open so it can be challenged by everybody involved. Because otherwise your ideas might be held back and you're not going to reach the same kind of ceiling that your team potential has unless you are willing to engage in those conversations. But obviously when I'm there, I can recognize the pattern when it's going to go down a line that is just exhausting for people. And that's my job to make sure it doesn't happen. But this time I wasn't there. And I do think players, whether they're going to admit it or not, I do think people that there's a enjoyment to arguing, especially something that you care about so much, the game. Like arguing is fun. It raises your adrenaline in a way, and it's kind of like a battle in itself, and it really tickles your ego. So there's an incentive structure in your mind that you're not aware of that kind of makes you lean into that, because you're really placating your ego and playing into your ego. But you need to catch it real time as it happens. And the biggest lesson for everybody involved is understanding where you should concentrate your energy, because Veli and Crowny, they are very good players in their own respect. But in terms of improving one another, it's not something that works super, super well because of some baggage. But sometimes you have player relationships that are like that. Outside of the game, they are friends. They can hang out. There's no problem. But in the game, different sides of your nature, your competitive nature comes through. And that's where you can find clashes. But the conclusion is always like, yo, guys, if you have a feedback point, say it once. And then if it doesn't stick, that's fine. Let other people communicate that have a deeper, that kind of a relationship that allows for that, because it differs. It's the same. It's like if Nemesis gives a feedback point to Velia, that maybe Crowny would give, he would take that better from Nemesis, even though he might say the exact same thing, just because of where the relationship is at, based on everything they've gone through. And quantifying that is sometimes hard, but you have to be very, very aware of it and just realize where you should pour your energy. I gave the example just as a final thing. It's like for Crowny, it's like I had a conversation with like, bro, when you were successful with BDS, where did you concentrate your energy? He said, yeah, I just talk with my support all the time. It's like, yeah, you didn't sit there and try to convince Adam to play a very different way. That would have been like a losing fight and you would just go in and go also. He's like, no, the coaches spoke to Adam. It's like, yeah, there you go. It's like, it's a balancing act and understanding, where your energy is just best put, because you can't do everything. And when players try to do everything, that's when they get so frustrated and loud and exhausted because they feel like they want to conquer all issues at the same time and it just doesn't work. That's where I think Crowny gets flustered and says things that maybe aren't relevant to the situation. And I can understand that frustration because he just wants to win. And I think that's the bottom line. I do feel like everyone wants to win. So I do think it comes from a good place. And as long as I believe in that, I don't care what kind of fucking escalation happens. Because if I believe that they want to win, I can always bring them down to the point where rationality can come back. It's just a question of timing and letting it breathe a little bit. So that was a very long-winded version of all of my thoughts, Thorin. I hope.
Thing is, it's not even the drama itself that I found irritating me. Like, I found the drama interesting, and it had a lot of things that you could sort of draw conclusions about people and how they communicate. What I hated was the response, bro, because I think the response is stupider than any argument these guys had. Like, let me just remind people of the facts. This isn't a professional team. It's a bunch of like friends who are in a really unusual situation, or colleagues who are choosing to play another tournament because they enjoyed playing together. It's not like this. Here's the thing. This isn't like G2 leaked their scrims and G2 communicates like this. Like, this isn't a top pro team that all live in a team house and they all have. So anyone who's here's the obvious thing I would say to people is, what did they do wrong? They didn't do anything criminal and they didn't do anything unprofessional, because by definition, they're not professional players in a professional team setup. Like, this is a very casual setup where it's held together essentially by we're just choosing to be here. So there's that element. Secondly, I want to know what fans are contrasting this with, mate. Remember, other teams don't stream their scrims. So we have no idea how other teams communicate. And look, maybe in a minute you can tell me about this, but I've known many teams in both Counter-Strike and League of Legends where, mate, there are way spicier arguments than this happening in VOD reviews. There are people who've actually had actual fist fights or told people, like, I'll punch you in the face if you say that again. By the way, there's even an angle I think's mental. When you're contrasting this as a fan, since you've never seen other pro teams, you just assume they all talk differently. Please tell me you're not contrasting this with when you as a fan playing solo queue and thinking if someone talked to you that way, because this isn't a solo queue setup either. Like, in a weird way, Yamato, actually, when you know someone well, surely everyone gets this with their best friend or their family members. You can argue way more viciously with people you know and you know won't just leave than you would with like a stranger. Like, mate, people might think I'm rude. I would never be rude to someone on a bus. But I tell you what, if my mate started telling me some movie that was shit was good, and even worse, like Velia in some of these moments, he's even trying to rage bait me. Like, I've seen Velia make a comment and be like, no, when he's got Crowny, like, rage baited the shit out of him and triggered him. That also pisses you off even more. That's like if your little brother was doing that, you'd be like, shut up. And check if your mom's watching. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah, of course, it's going to make it even worse, isn't it? And then also, like I said, they just don't know what the team environment's like. Like, mate, if I told you some of the stories I heard of, like, some of the Fnatic lineups Nemesis was on, or the classic one, obviously, except a lot of these stories I've been told in my reflection interviews, is that H2K with Yankos and Odoamne and fucking Forgiven. That was like a steel cage death match, bro. It was like a Royal Rumble. Whose music is that? Like, people just coming off the top rope and shit. It was crazy. Like, it was way worse than this, mate. They weren't just sitting there like nerds having an argument about the game. They were like getting into like personal shit with each other and calling each other alcoholics and stuff like that. Like outrageous shit. Like, you could come to blows over. Then also, people are forgetting this third element, Yamato. It's also on stream. Like, one of the reasons, I'll give you a quick analogy that I think you'll be able to appreciate because you've been someone who's been a personality. Have you ever noticed, Yamato, how worthless it is to have an argument as a famous person with someone else famous publicly on Twitter? What you very quickly realize is, this guy wouldn't talk to me this way on a show or in private on a call. part of it becomes performative because you're not really just talking to each other, you're talking to a crowd as well. And so it becomes like those shitty political debates where you're never backing down and you can never give up. You can, like in a normal convo over a beer, you'd go, yeah, maybe you are right on that one. I was going a bit too far there. But what about this other thing? You'd be way more friendly. Similarly, if you were actually in like a professional setting, you'd be like, well, I'm not going to go too far. Because you're on stream here, part of it's you never want to be the one that backs down. Also, I'll guarantee, I'll make a speculation that I can't know, but I'm going to speculate. I imagine these guys, sadly, do have the fucking Twitch chat up, mate, and they're seeing all the response and the feedback from fans too. And I'll give you an example. If you're Crowley and all the fans are being like, you're being mean to Velia, you're going to get even more annoyed if you think he's wrong. And if you think, for example, in the case of Crowley, who's Velia? And people are telling me, how dare Crowley be this toxic? Crowley almost won the LEC, for fuck's sake. He's been a Worlds. Velia, if I'm Crowley, Velia, it's like, look, you're a decent player, mate, on my team now, and you're my teammate, but you're not on my level. Who are you to tell me I'm wrong? That is a way that pro players think. Pro players are very hierarchical. Like, if you're Perks, you're not going to let some rookie talk shit to you. You're Perks. It doesn't matter if right now the rookie's better than you. In history, you have more status, you've accomplished more, and you have a bigger ego that at one point was justifiably built. So I also feel like it's probably the worst dynamic you could have had, mate, because Crowley is actually a veteran player who's been pretty good, and then you've got the player that's never been in LEC before, except this one split. You couldn't have a worse mismatch to then have an argument as if they were equals over some game stuff. And you nailed it earlier, bro. These guys fell into the trap that every pro coach I know always agrees with me you never do, which is if you argue with your player, you never go into his specialty of his role and let him get you into the details, because he'll beat you every time. He'll have some reason, like as you said there, Yamato, even if you know everything about the game. I know some coaches that are mega brain boxes, man. They know every role. But here's the problem. At the end of the day, the player can always do a line. You're fucked if you're the coach. He can go, yeah, but when I was in that situation, it didn't feel like that. Well, you can't know what he felt like. You can't know what his situation. So they'll always beat you. So if you're, I agree with you. You nailed it. This is why I can tell you a good coach, mate. If you're Velia and Crowley, don't ever comment on how the jungler plays, mate. Your only comment is what the jungler could do for you. That's a different argument. If you're Velia or Blippo, shut the fuck up about the wave state in bot lane. You're not a bot laner. I'm sorry, you just watched the bot lane from the other side of the map or in a VOD. You didn't feel what it felt like to be in that setting and that scenario. So again, if you want to argue with Crowley, it has to be about the areas you connect with each other and how you communicate. That's a great convo to have. Like, here's what you could do to help me, or I need you to do this in the future, or when you communicate with me, say this. That's a convo we can have a great discussion about. If we get into the minutiae of, did you have priority in lane, or were you on the right jungle path? Now we're just going to, that's called getting lost in the weeds, mate. We're going to be lost forever on this and that. And even worse, if we're both stubborn and we're both on camera, when neither of us is going to back down, that is, as you see, that is never going to end. That argument will spawn from one thing at the beginning. 3 hours later, you're not even talking about that. You're all the way over here in fucking Narnia talking about some other shit. And eventually, like, they never stop. So I also thought, look, it was great drama to watch if you just wanted your popcorn. And then obviously, as you see, fuckers like Doublelift are like, can I get in? Can I get in the call, please? Because if people don't know, by the way, that's one of the only contrasts I can give you. If people don't know, at the beginning, way back when you were beginning as a pro, famously, LCS had the biggest streamers in the world. People like Doublelift and Hotshot, and they used to stream scrims. And are you ready? Maybe you know this, or you don't, Yamato. They used to argue like this all the time. When they were one of the best teams in the world, Doublelift, St. Vicious, and it wasn't even not Doublelift, because Doublelift was the quiet one back then. It was Hotshot GG, St. Vicious, and Chowster used to do this they would do it while they were playing the scrim, bro. They would be playing the scrim and jungling and going, I told you not to go for that dragon. Well, I said not to go for it. Why you never listen to me when I tell you? Wait, top lane. Get the guy. I told you, well, drop it. Stop talking about that. I've dropped it already. He won't drop it. Like, they would just go for hours. And I'll tell you what, mate, everyone was loving it. This was like prime time viewing. I was like, oh, this is incredible. So what's sad is this isn't new at all to me, but I did think it was funny. I just think people took two extreme conclusions from it, you know, like people made, like, Crowley's like public enemy number one now, mate. He's not. He's a guy who cares a lot about the game. He's actually underrated by Reddit, by the way. They make him sound shit. He's an above average ADC almost every time I've ever seen him play. He's good. He certainly has his flaws. And even that whole, like, is he got a big ego? You're a dickhead on Reddit who's never done anything. Who are you to talk about ego? You're criticizing them too. You never played in any scene, almost won it. I'll never get that logic. One of the weirdest things about fans, Yamato, is a really popular angle with fans is, well, how can this player talk shit on him when he accomplished more? By that logic, how can you talk shit on any of them? You were just a fan. I'm just a fan. I'll never use that angle because it doesn't make sense. It stops me being able to critique them. So I don't know. Any final thoughts on that? Any thread you want to pick up there?
Oh, just the final aspect. I do think it's very important that you feel like in a team environment that you don't have to like hold back, in the sense that in your emotion and in your thoughts, maybe there's some truth there, maybe there's something that you're trying to uncover, maybe it's just like underneath some stones, and you know, need to go through the motion to kind of push them off, because in the aftermath, just because I trust every single one of these guys, I trust them that they want to win over anything, is that in the aftermath, the calls that I have and the conclusions that we reach are golden. You know, they're golden. And if we didn't have that friction in that moment, right, which happened, maybe we wouldn't have reached the same conclusions, because underneath that there was like, oh, there was actually this thing that frustrated me that I want to see more of from your side, and I wanted to see more from this. Maybe there's something deeper rooted here in your frustration that is connected to our gameplay, that is something that we can solve, and you know, that level and that aspect of it is something that comes out of it when you have the space to be honest with one another. Because the calls that I had with them individually after the fact, off stream, were very, very good. We found very constructive solutions that we're going to add in terms of how we practice and the layers that we want to add, and that's where the gold is at, you know, because you don't uncover that if people are just not engaging in the things that bother them in the moment, you know. And I think that trust should extend to the other side too, that even if you catch me in a moment of weakness, that you know that it comes from a place of wanting to improve. And I think that at no point did anyone stop believing in that fact in regards to the other party in this entire argument. And that's the most important thing.
Well, whatever we all do in life, I think it's cool when we can express ourselves with a side hustle, start working on something of our own that we can put out in the world. Maybe Whippo could do some sort of a guide to how to brand yourself and market to all genders and demographics in the world. Maybe Velia could have a guide to bot lane priority with different matchups. Crowley could do his own jungler support group that he runs every week, where he encourages all the young junglers of the world that they too can speak up and be great players. Whatever it is, one of the problems with making your own business, I can tell you, Yamato, is you need to have a team of people who can do all the things for you. You need the coder for the website, you need the social media guy, you need the person who helps with marketing, you need the person who helps make the commerce, you need someone. The problem with that is if you go and hire all those people, it's going to be really expensive. If you try and do it all yourself, you're going to have to try and be like a Renaissance man and do like 5 different jobs. It's going to be really hard. And even if you want to hire people, they're either going to be costly or it's going to be hard to get them to work on your project. That's where Shopify has you taken care of, because on Shopify, you've already got your team built into the website. They have all the templates. That's the design element to look really awesome. They have all the e-commerce thing. Obviously, you know, millions and millions of people have used all these Shopify stores before. You know, it's a legit way that they can do all the payment processing, etc. They sell products all the way around the world. So you can sell as a tiny little person. You can scale up and sell to different people in different continents. They have all the SEO taken care of. So you can get all the search stuff gone. Also, by the way, a little detail, because it's an iconic shop, Shopify, they have that big purple button. Don't they? So you just click it and all your details are there. You don't have to put it on. That's one thing I find really annoying about e-commerce. If I've used a specific site where there's a great deal, I go there and it's like, oh, I have to put all my bloody details in here and make sure it's just easy. It's classic. You already recognize it. You click it. Same for your customer. He's going to recognize that. So it's just really easy to do. So Shopify is an easy place to go and get started. So start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing cha-ching. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/summoning. Go to shopify.com/summoning. Can you guess what I'm going to say a third time? If you guessed I'm going to say shopify.com/summoning, then you were right. Cha-ching. Right, okay. I think we do a few Q&A and then we end the episode. I think we've done a pretty good one. Yeah. Obviously, next week we'll be fully into all the games and we'll go deep on first stand, etc. And we'll have about as many people in the Twitch chat as will be live at the event. So there we go, 1 for 1. That's cool.
Nice.
The reason that's a mean comment, you might, was in a sane world, if they had 10,000 people, I can never say that. But if they only have 140, we could probably manage that. But we've got more right now. So there you go. Bigger show than first stand. So nice. If you want to ask a question, go to the Last Free Nation Discord, subscribe there, and there's a section SI questions. You can ask one. Obviously, we don't ask them all, but here's the thing I do tend to do. on different weeks and especially slow weeks, I don't only ask the questions that were submitted that week. I'll go back and I treat them as a grab bag, and I'll sometimes go back to one a month ago if it's relevant. So we'll see what we get into this time. So for this one, here is going to be the first question. Okay, this is an interesting one because I don't really know what I think about this myself. So Need for Speedo says, can we talk about how absolutely trash the League audio system is? Okay, listen, he goes, especially compared to something like Overwatch, which prioritizes sounds based on dynamic factors such as threat to you. Okay, that's interesting. So he means like the game apparently, like I assume if something's like blowing near your ear, it makes a louder sound. He said the sound is so messy that it gives you zero game info. Right, so what he means by the sound system here is literally just like the audio you hear as a player in the game. Like if you're in a team fight and but essentially, what do you think on this topic? Is League bad for that? What would you say?
Honestly, I randomly have thought about this, but I'm on the other side of the argument because I think the audio engineering of League is very, very well done. Obviously, in terms of audio cues, like being in like obviously in shooters is very different because of the dimension of play in terms of distance and how you move. This is from this point of view of the game in terms of where your camera is at. There are audio dynamics at play in terms of the distance to sound. I think there's very, very clear audio cues. I think that the main focus for League, though, I think in terms of audio, I think it's tied to satisfaction, which meaning I think if there's something that League has done super well is it feels very satisfying to land abilities like the sound, whether it's a Jax hitting a tower or the third hit or a W proc or a Darius Q or a echo passive hit. All the abilities feel incredibly satisfying to hit, which I think is a very underrated aspect of the enjoyment of the game. But in terms of playing League without sound, I think you're at a massive disadvantage. It's like I can't play League without audio. I find it very, very strange because there's a lot of audio cues that are important, whether it's someone like an Hecarim coming into out of Fog of War, you hear the sound instantly. So I'm kind of inclined to disagree. I think definitely as well in team fights, where there's so much going on at the same time, I do think that the priority that Riot has built in terms of audio is also well done in terms of the things that kind of stand out to you. Because you can be in the middle of a team fight and the mall fight will have such a distinct sound that it cuts through the rest of the noise. And I do think it's a lot more difficult when there's 150 League champions with unique abilities and unique sounds to actually find that level of clarity. So I think the challenge is just different, and what you're trying to achieve is also a little bit different. So I would disagree. I think the audio engineering of League is very good.
I know what he means in terms of like specific things for like how close it is to you, or if they're trying to I get what he means on that. That maybe intuitively League's not good at that. I know what you mean though. I do think as long as you're the one doing the damage, it is satisfying. Like that sound when I'm trying to remember what scenario it is. It was one of those like one hit sounds like you know, the one where it's like I'm trying to think what champion even does that. Fuck, what
is it Zach?
No, I'm trying to think. It's a bit like the Jax one, but you know the one where what's the item that does this? What am I thinking of? What's the item where each time you kill them, it just makes like a weird... It sounds like a spring uncompressed.
You mean Heartsteel?
Like that might be it. That might be it.
Like when
it sounds baller though, bro.
Yeah.
It sounds dope. By the way, it's really annoying if you hear it, the other person do it. But if you're the one doing it, I know what you mean. It sounds sick, doesn't it? Like it's actually one thing, if you want an analogy from Counter-Strike that I don't like about modern day Counter-Strike. You played 1.6. Bro, one of the most underrated things about 1.6 is when you hit the headshot, you know that animation where the guy's foot flies up like that? That doesn't happen in CSGO and CS2. In CSGO and CS2, he just falls over and you just shoot him in the head. Like, that's actually whack. It was way cooler, that thing where he went like some Tarantino movie or something. It was baller, wasn't it? I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I don't actually have strong thoughts aside from that. I think it's a fair point. Okay. I don't know if this is even relevant. We'll ask it anyway. Fede says, how would G2 winning the 2019 finals against FPX have affected the LPL? He wants to basically know, would it have made like the LPL decline sooner? Would it have affected it at all? What do you think? Would it have any impact?
Honestly, I think the main thing that changed the trajectory of things, if anything, I think the fact that the LCK wasn't in the finals, I think, had a bigger impact than the outcome of the finals. Because the LCK changed after that in terms of how they approach practice, how they change everything. Maybe if there's a world, like if the question was phrased in a way, what happened if T1 would have won?
Yes.
Maybe then the trajectory of like league history would have been different.
Yes.
But I think in terms of the achievement of being in the finals and FPX being there, obviously 2021 we had the EGG winning the World Championship, which is of course also significant. But I think the ramp up of the LCK is the one that is the biggest change up of everything, because we weren't missing like really strong LPL teams, even in a world where FPX didn't win the finals. So I don't think it would have changed much. I think LCK is the big big one.
No, bro, you just nailed it there. The most underrated narrative in the history of League of Legends, when you consider that like fucking T1 and Faker won the last 3 worlds, is, mate, in a weird way, if you actually want Faker to win fewer worlds, you should let him win that 2019 one with that squad and win MSI as well, because that squad wasn't that great. But if they'd have won, they'd have thought they were still number 1. I think that was like the biggest kick up the arse ever. Because remember, it was only a year or so later that they did the like 10-man roster that eventually became ZOFGK, like a year and a half later. Like, if that hadn't happened, because remember, they were actually a favourite for these tournaments, bro. They were supposed to win MSI, and I think most people would have had them favoured over FPX if they made the finals of that one. I'm with you. Like, if anything, I think it's LCK and specifically T1 that changed everything. That made them go harsh the other way. Whereas in a weird way, look, it wouldn't have been good for Europe, but it would have actually been better for like LPL if fucking T1 won those worlds bizarrely, because he wouldn't have this crazy roster that was super clutch. That's the one that changed like 5 world championships for me. Right, this is just a weird question, so it's up to you if you want to answer it. I feel like we can get away with making it funny, because we'll just make it like this guy's a Chad or something. Right, so the Morgster says, we're going to make it lighthearted. He says, if you could choose any esports player to compete in a mogging/looks maxing competition, who would you choose? So I figured we're going to make it not offensive, because we're just going to pick someone where they look like a Chad, essentially, so they'd like mog someone. Who when I say that, who comes to mind? What players are we thinking of immediately, Mar? I'll give you one off the top. I'll tell you what, I'm not.
Flame.
Who?
Flame.
Oh, from back in the day. Yeah, but here's the thing. His is more like he's just beautiful naturally. Yeah. I'm thinking more from the Mogging one. I'll tell you a modern one. I'm not that big of a fan, but I'll tell you what, this guy would win this competition. Gumayushi. If you want to talk about a face card, mate, this guy looks like a Chad. He actually does look like a baller, doesn't he?
He does play the part super well. That's for sure, yeah. I feel like, obviously a little bit of bias, but I think Velia, in terms of the average player that you see, I do think like he's built, has a good jawline, good hair. I do think that one is also an angle, Velia has that look about him, the mogging look, and he's also he also knows all the mogging memes and the jester maxing and the cortisol spiking. Like he's in the loop on all of that jazz.
All right, being as this is now a public relationship, so I'm not like revealing any secrets. Put it this way, now I know that Law has great taste, because you know what? Even though he's a friend of mine, I've always thought Odoamne was a bit of a Chad. He does look like a fucking man's man, doesn't he? He looks like a baller. He could win one. There you go. He could win one. What about oh, look, I don't want to go full Joe Marsh, but I can't lie. If you wanted to mog someone, right, if you see Owner dressed as an esports pro, yeah, he looks like a nerd, right? But bro, have you seen some of those pictures of his like 6-pack and shit? Like, this guy is ripped. It's actually crazy. Have you seen it? He's actually like fucking insane. Like that guy could mog anyone in esports just by fucking undoing his shirt. Again, no Joe Marsh. No Joe Marsh on that one. I'm not oiling him up in this analogy. Bro, of all the things he said in the modern day, that'll live rent free in my head. The thing about like maybe I'll oil up Owner. Like, what? Bro, you're the CEO of the company. What are you talking about? This is
it couldn't have aged worse with everything that's come out.
It's so bad, isn't it? It's so bad, isn't it?
Oh man.
Also, I just imagine, like, part of me hopes Owner just never heard about that. Like, what's happened when he wakes up? Yeah, our CEO was talking about oiling you up. Like, excuse me, what? It's so mental, isn't it? I know, like, that'd be a bit awkward the next team dinner, isn't it? I know, like, you been working out? No, Joe, what are you talking about? Joe, I feel exposed and vulnerable. Like, what are you doing? Anyway, whatever. Anyway. This is a bad one, but you'll enjoy this. This is funny for you. right? There's a guy called The Dog who comes from my Discord, Yamato, where he's like a bit of a casual / boomer, but he also does follow the games. But all his questions, if you notice, are silly. So this is one for you, clearly, right? So The Dog asks, you got Leo's character from Christopher Nolan's Inception to incept this idea into the bouse. Winning and trying hard in LEC is cool, good, and makes a person happy. Listen to the question. After that, would he be an upgrade over MCoy Merwin? That last part just came out of nowhere, didn't it? Like, what? Like, you thought that was about that. The last part, I know. The last part does complete. So answer the question, Mark. Would that be, if he got that idea incepted, would he be better than Merwin? That's such a back, I can't lie. It's so stupid, isn't it?
You know, Baus has some strengths that other top laners don't have. In the sense that I think he has a relationship with the game that is like what is comparable to maybe Caps. It's like he enjoys, like if he plays 12 hours a day, he's having fun.
Okay.
And that's powerful. Because also at the same time, in terms of like mastering champions, he does shit on champions, like regardless of his flaws. Like some shit that he does on Gragas or Sion, it's like no other player is going to be able to do that in a competitive game. So he has some unique strengths.
He's a bit like Adam in that sense, isn't he? He has got certain matchups he just knows more than even pros about, clearly, yeah.
For sure. And I think that part is a strength that is very hard to find. And with everything else, like I think, you know, the joke is about the Inception and Leo part, but I honestly can say that in terms of where he was at and how he approached this, it's like he had a level of professionalism that was comparable to like the top guys in the league in terms of how many hours he put in, how strict he was with his discipline and routine. Like he really like put his heart fully into this, in the sense that he was always there early in the morning, last to leave the office. I always had to tell Baus, you have to lock up the office, because he was like there at 1 a.m. and I'm leaving because I'm disappointed. You're gonna be all right, Baus. And he was just grinding. And I feel like it was rewarding to him. If there was a world where, for some reason, he would have this Leo idea incepted into him and he would do this full time, I don't know in what scenario he would be in a team outside of Los Ratones, but I could see him becoming eventually good. You know, I can definitely see that. Better than Midwin? Maybe. Yeah, I can see that world. He would need maybe 2 years' time, maybe something like this, and I can see that happen for sure.
In this case, that's why I said it's a question of you. I don't know the bounce outside of a stream person, so I can't answer that. I will say I know what you mean. If he had essentially every other aspect that a normal good pro player has, but his current skills, he actually would be underrated. Because one thing I actually did like about his style of playing when he was a solo queue player is even though, look, some people thought he was inting, he clearly just has a different perspective. Like I was saying earlier about Xiaohu and them, he's not the guy who has to solo kill you 10 times. He just has to get to the point in the game where he understands that game state better than you, and he can win the game, even if he's behind in lane, if he's behind in kills and gold. So I do appreciate that part, but I don't know anything about him elsewhere. And I'm not going to diss Merwin by saying, yeah, it'd be better. Merwin's pretty good. Listen, he was shit in that final, but he is pretty good in general. Here's a good question. It's a hard one, though. Big Boy says, what media franchise was most ruined by trying to achieve mass appeal and catering to the plebs? So is there a big franchise that you think they just watered it down or made it too shit for just by trying to get everyone in on it, basically? Can you think of anything?
Oh, damn. You know, from my mind, it's like I am so selective with what I consume, because I have this issue with consuming something that is unfinished. Like I don't like it. It's like I like the shows that I lean into and rewatch. It's like I watch The Sopranos, I watch The Wire, I watch Breaking Bad, because it's like in its complete package. Even though I've seen it, I can't stand something that just gets worse over time. I don't know if it's the right angle, because I'm thinking about series. That's where my brain goes. But there's so many shows that started off so good with a concept, and then it continued for all the wrong reasons to just make money, which maybe isn't watering it down, but it's kind of like with the same angle of trying to make money. It's like if if Lost was done way earlier and we still didn't start time traveling and do what the hell we're doing,
right.
it could have been a good show. And I put Prison Break on the same line. It's like Prison Break's like, why are we back in prison for the fifth time?
What you mean is if they'd have ended these shows after like season 2, they could have just made it
Yes.
awesome. I know what you mean. The joke is, as soon as they escape the second prison, you're like, but another prison, really? Like, really, bro? Back in, I know what you mean. It did kind of get.
But it's like if Prison Break was like the first 16 episodes,
yes,
that's a masterpiece, by the way. Like that's like a masterpiece. But somehow it's like it's just money, and I guess in some sense it is trying to achieve that level of mass appeal to some degree, and I guess that's a way of watering it down. But in terms of in other angles, that's where my mind went. So where did your mind go?
But this way, I also agree. Like, here's what's sad. I actually think the first season of Prison Break was bagging. That was a fucking awesome. Like, when it was all about the main plot of that brother and the tattoos, without any spoilers, that was really good. And also, by the way, the main 2 actors were doing a great job. In fact, I was even a fan, as a character of that, because it's going to sound sus now that I say this, I was a big fan of that teabag guy. Even though, yes, I get that he was gay raping people. I'm aware of that. I wasn't a fan of that part. I was a fan of that actor was killing it though, bro. That actor was mad intimidating. You know, that guy was like, you're being penny wise, penny foolish and pound right, like all that. It was fucking baller. He had like a really, but the problem is, as soon as they escape the prison, it just goes way downhill, that show, doesn't it? Like, I know if you end that after 1 or 2 seasons, that'll be a way higher viewed show. Whereas sadly, when I watched some of those latter ones, I would just tune back in and be like, they're in a different prison in a different country. This is just shit, mate. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, just get on with your life, you know. I'm going to go a bit off on a different angle than people thought too, because I actually had a hard time with this one. I think the media franchise I'm going to pick will shock people, and it is the Alien franchise. Because, bro, the first 2 Alien films are banging. Alien and Aliens are totally different films. Alien's like a space horror. Aliens is like, you know, fucking action movie. Those are 2 brilliant movies. But the problem is, I think the original Alien isn't supposed to be like a giant box office film. It's supposed to be like a cult classic or like a cool movie. And so what I think they ruined with that was they just made a million sequels where, if you notice, the reason the sequels get worse is because, one, they just keep repeating the same things from Alien. Like, they keep doing the same alien coming and attacking you. Sometimes, like in that one Alien Romulus or whatever, they were even recreating the exact same scenes. They were just doing like the greatest hits of what an Alien movie is like. But that's boring, because what's great about Alien when you watch it is, if you've never seen the film before, you won't guess to which way it's going to go. It's got a really interesting plot and the way it plays out the horror elements. But if you know what's coming, then it's not really Alien anymore. And then also, some of those late movies, like Prometheus, they made a mistake that I think plebs always ask for, which is a mistake. You know, there's a saying in English that says, be careful what you ask for, because you might get it, right? Plebs always want you to explain all the really weird lore and mystique about what happened, right? But as you see in Prometheus and that Alien Covenant, if you do it, it's not actually as interesting as what you imagined. Like, when you saw an alien, that space jockey, for like 2 seconds, and you're going, what's that? Holy, wait, there was another like alien race, right? But when you actually go, I'd love to know what happened there. It was boring. It was actually shit, mate. Like, knowing that was a better as a mystery than knowing what happened in it, isn't it? It's a bit like you think about horror movies. Oftentimes, it's not showing you it that scary, isn't it? If you know all the thing, I was just a scientist who made like a thing and it's like a virus. That's not that cool anymore. You kind of taken the magic out of it. So I think Alien, if you could go back in time, do the first 2 movies, and then each other movie, what you do is you don't do it now like they do, where they just do it generic style. You take each movie to a brilliant director and you say, right, I want you to just do your take on this universe, but you can do anything you want. You can go anywhere in the universe. You don't have to even feature the original alien. You can have a different type of xenomorph, you know. I think that would have been way more interesting. Whereas actually, that's a franchise where I've watched like most of them, but I've tapped out a few years ago, mate. Like, I don't watch the modern ones now because I know it's just I've heard from Monty, it's just more of the same. It's the same shit, basically.
It's just there's so many movies where they like reuse like a franchise was done. There was like a 2-series movie, and then they just come back to it because the marketing is easier.
Yep.
I don't know how. There's so many movie lines, whether it's like Oceans or Ghostbusters or
Terminator,
like,
everything,
all Terminator, like all these live action movies of like really insanely good like Disney movies. You know, like this. Like it's just the art is dead on some form, you know. It's like they're just leaning back to marketing that has already been done to appeal to nostalgia. It's rare that we get something like new, even though at least now in gaming, I feel like we get a lot of good games that are coming out. I feel like we're in a golden era of gaming, and some series are interesting, like Knights of the Seven Kingdom. I don't know if you've watched that one, or really good. I feel Pluribus is very interesting with Vince Gilligan. So I don't want to be too complaining, because I do think that I've been satisfied
I've got a
in
complaint
many
for
ways.
you. I'll tell you
Okay.
one complaint I have about Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and it's like this,
Okay.
Yamato. One of the things I don't like about the Walk era is, they haven't banned you looking at sex and stuff. They've just made it stuff that they know you're not into. So I'll give you an example. Game of Thrones season 1 and season 2 is like tits. It's like fucking sexy women. It's like, woo, it's all titillation. Night of the Seven Kingdoms, within the first 3 episodes, you're seeing people shit diarrhea out their arse. A guy's just dick walking around like, what is this? Who ordered this? Like, mate, if I want to see like naked flesh, it's not some guy's dick walking around. Fucking hell. So anyway, throw that to one side. Get that out of my face. Get out of my face. Right, okay, what about this question? Classic rant. Milkman22 says, I know Thorin is mostly into rap and electronic music. Not quite true, but fair enough. But has mentioned liking Led Zeppelin before. I'm not too sure of Yamato's music taste. We'll get to know you, little fucking rat. Why are you doing research? Anyway, he says, so his question is, it's a good question. He says, how heavy of heavy metal can you tolerate / enjoy? And can we list some rock or metal bands that we're into? So obviously, listen, you're Swedish. So have you ever been into like Swedish metal or dark metal or black metal or anything?
I think my line is when I stop understanding what the hell they're growling. Like when it's not words to me anymore, that's probably like the line that I wouldn't cross. I think in terms of like my genre of rock, I think like the metal is basically as far as. But if I think about what I've listened to the most, it's like Metallica was my favorite band. System of a Down I love more than anything. In terms of like, there's not a single System of a Down song that I don't like, even the weird ones about terracotta pie and whatever the hell, like I'm completely addicted to System of a Down. I'm trying to think of other bands. I think the classic good ones, whether it's like Led Zeppelin or AC/DC, it's like that era of music to me is just like insane. So I don't go too heavy, but I am in that pocket. I definitely have like days and weeks sometimes when I go back to the old playlists of just listening to metal. Because growing up, I was a big rap hater, like I was like, oh, what the hell is this? This is real music, like that. That's who I was at some point, until you get like that eye-opening experience at some point where you just kind of connect to it for some reason. But it's always just like what you kind of engage in. But in terms of like music in general, like I don't mind any form of genre. Like I can listen to pop music if it's like really good. It's like I appreciate. It sounds strange, but I appreciate when I can hear the quality of like if I can tune into like an instrument and just see how it ties together and let one instrument lead me into everything else. I kind of like going through that experience. I think like Rage Against the Machine is also like just a band that I love so much because that allows me to do that like very, very easily in terms of how they tie everything together with Tom Morello on the fucking guitar. But yeah, that's my music taste, I guess.
By the way, I'm in a similar boat. Like, essentially, that would even be how I'd describe it. As soon as they get to the point that they're just screaming, and you have to either have listened to a lot of screaming music or that one singer to know what he's even saying, I'm usually out. Like, the only band that's even close to that is I do actually like a Finnish black metal band. I think they're called Winter Sun. But actually, if you ever listen to it, it's because the actual guitar parts are really melodic, bro. They're not like, that's another thing they tend to do with metal, that type that I don't like, is when the lyrics are screaming, but then the guitarist is actually like a virtuoso, but they're doing like too complicated, time signatures. And if you go into like, what am I going to hook onto? The reason that if you ever look up this Winter Sun stuff I've just told you about, it's mega melodic, mate. Like the guitar stuff's all great. You just enjoy it if you like rock music, basically. Aside from that, the only like one of those darker bands I even like is for a separate reason. It's a band called Over from I think Norway, and it's more because actually they started as like a black metal band, but then a few albums in they started doing all genres of music. So they did like a jazz album and a sort of, now they've even done some sort of like 80s post-punk music, which is like sounds like some like 80s rock or something. So they just became like, they're just great at music, it turned out, and they like transitioned out that genre. As you talk about metal, I'm not actually that complicated. Like I just like stuff like Tool, again, Metallica. How are you? If you go to the 90s and the 80s Metallica, straight fire. Essentially everything up to the Black Album, I'm a mad fan of. I'm not as much of a fan of the later stuff. I'm not really a fan of modern Metallica, but that stuff's banging. Like if you ever go to a gym session You can't really go wrong with like the fucking Black album or the fucking Ride the Lightning or something. These are straight fire albums to listen to. You don't skip anything on that, do you? Similarly, old school Pantera. Big fan of that too. This is all gym music, by the way. It's just the shit you put on to literally push metal in it. Just go hard. Okay.
I was fortunate, right? Like the first game I was competing in was Guitar Hero, and that shaped like you got so much exposure to so much different music through Guitar Hero, because that's like Metallica, you got Disturbed, you even got like In Flames. You go into so many different directions in terms of music. I think like Guitar Hero did a really good job of like exposing you to any form of rock. Like it just pulled you in so many directions, which I think that shaped a lot of what I liked listening to growing up.
So, okay, if you wanted to ask a question for next week, submit it now. We'll see if you get through. Next week will mainly be about first stand, obviously, but we'll be back then to discuss more League of Legends.